from an announcement in October that ninth grade is happening to it not being offered at all within a 2-month time frame with no parent communication during that time frame or before. I also would like to encourage admin and the board to make a formal commitment to the future of KIPLA. The students and families deserve to know what KIPLA's future looks like and what needs to happen in order for 9th to 12th grade expansion to actually happen. I spoke with a future KIPLA parent yesterday, and she shared with me the email that she sent to admin and the board yesterday. They're moving back to the area from Florida and had the option of living anywhere in the Geneva area. They toured KIPLA in December and fell in love with it. They're currently under a contract on a house in Elburn specifically so that their children can attend KIPLA. The school has only been open since August, and it's already attracting families to our district. I'm sure you all know that choosing where to live is a big decision. This amazing school is impacting more and more students and families as time passes. Please don't put off making a decision about this wonderful school. It deserves your full support and a chance to grow. I also want to thank the amazing KIPLA staff members, many of which are here tonight. They go above and beyond with their students every day. They've created a truly individualized learning environment and a wonderful community, and I appreciate all of their hard work. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up, forgive me if I botched your name, but I believe this is Sherry Tremblay. Is it Sherry? Sherry? Sorry, I apologize.
If you don't mind, we're gonna, Susie and I, since we're
Sure. Of course.
You wrote it down. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Suzanne Safield. I've been in this district probably longer than anybody in this room, since 1995. Did I beat you? No. Okay. Second. I've always appreciated this district so much. You've always supported me when I wanted to grow as an educator, going to conferences for differentiation, and then getting into personalized learning and getting training in that as well, national board certification. So I just wanted to come tonight to say I appreciate the opportunity you've provided in opening KIPLA so that we can provide this new type of school for the students. We've had teachers, we've taught in all the other schools levels. I've been elementary and harder, and they're doing amazing things in the buildings. I don't want to say that we're better. They're doing awesome personalized things there, but because you've created a structure where we can break through the grade levels and the schedule, those are natural constraints that make it harder to do some of those really amazing individualizations that
Correct.
we do.
Yes.
Go.
We've both been on the personalized learning committee from the get-go, which has been about 8 years. So to see like this come to fruition in KIPLA has been amazing. So we're just wanting to make sure that that vision still continues as it had with previous boards, that isn't left behind. So I wanted to also thank the board members that have had the chance to come and tour and see what we're all about. I know that's really hard, especially if you're in the middle of the day, and we do know you have other things. But you've taken the time to come to ask and to really kind of dig into what we're trying to do to make a difference there.
And we're really enjoying this opportunity to work with the students and plan their learning pathways and then just kind of get out of their way, because they're just moving so fast through things that we're like, okay, they're going to be busy with that for a little while, and then they're like, we're done, we want to learn more. Literally, they're like,
Yeah.
Can I have some more
Today.
So they're pushing us more than I've ever been pushed before.
Which
by
is
students.
really nice because we're a bit seasoned, especially together.
We're
We're
seasoned.
extra seasoning.
Yeah.
And, it's a good challenge to kind of have that back.
So thank you for providing this opportunity to really get to know our students at a deeper level, both as people and as learners.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your comments. If anyone who's standing doesn't want to, there's plenty of seats up front, so feel free. We'll go to the next one. Jaden Chada.
Hello everyone, my name is Jaden Chada and I live in unincorporated Blackberry Township, and I am going to be speaking on the Village of Sugar Grove TIF proposal. This statement is not actually mine. It is coming from former Oswego Village Board member Jim Martyr. He's also a congressional candidate for the 14th District. In the Village of Oswego, the board, 2015 through 2019, rammed through a multi-million-dollar TIF district. TIF districts at best should only be used for blighted areas, like the bad areas in Chicago and East St. Louis. What they have become is a way for municipalities to bargain one against another with taxpayer dollars. That's right. Village board members, it's our money, not yours. Municipalities are saddling their taxpayers with multiple millions of dollars in debt to be paid for in perpetuity. In the case of Oswego, immediately they rammed through the TIF district. They approved more than $23 million in a tax giveaway that benefited a single developer. They slashed impact fees, cost the school district, the fire districts, and other taxing bodies revenues as tax receipts for the 20-plus years. That same board also issued bonds, etc., for the purchase of a new police facility, saddling the village with $70 million in debt. Most of all, which still stands at that level 9 years later. Once a village gets mired in debt, it becomes an endless bucket where mostly only interest is getting paid off. In order to pay for that TIF district, these lasting tax increases on the Village of Oswego taxpayers were imposed. They raised taxes 4 times. Annual costs are estimated based on the typical family. Sales tax, 150% increase over existing sales tax, estimated at $200 to $400 a year per family. Motor fuel tax, 0.04 cents per gallon, estimated $50 to $100 per year depending on miles driven. 1% food and beverage tax, $30 to $100 per year per family, depending on food and entertainment. And number 4, increases to the water rate, $2.70 per 100 cubic feet over the next 6 years. $40 to $200 a year, depending on your family's water usage. And I will continue Mr. Martyr's statement in the second half of public comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up we have M Maher.
Good evening, esteemed members of the Canelan School Board and community. My name is M Maher, a Sugar Grove resident and kindergarten teacher in DeKalb. While I'm not a part of your district, I feel compelled to share my perspective as an educator on the proposed logistic warehousing development in Sugar Grove. The lure of revenue from this 3.5 million square foot development, which for perspective is nearly the size of 4 United Centers, backed by a significant TIF investment, should not overshadow the critical issues of health, safety, and education. As someone who navigates the interchange area daily on my way to work, I can testify to its current dangers and foresee the heightened risks that such a large-scale project would pose. In my own experience, teaching in a school surrounded by warehouses, the negative impacts are palpable. Neighborhoods are overrun by heavy traffic, especially from semis, disrupting the peace and safety of our communities. This has real consequences for our children. The pollution alone from diesel exhaust from 730 daily truck trips should be enough to deter someone. Many students in my school lose precious sleep due to relentless traffic noise or the fact that they now have to be the babysitters while their caregiver is working nights in these warehouses. Yes, creating more jobs will be beneficial, but how sustainable are they? Warehouse work has high turnover rates and is completely susceptible to being automated, pushing out real, hard-working people for autonomous vehicles. Moreover, the proposed TIF funding for this project is a significant concern. By diverting funds that could support education, we're risking the quality of our children's schooling. Educators are already stretched thin with limited resources and salaries. Relying on uncertain future revenues, which may not even materialize after waiting for 23 years, is a gamble we just cannot afford to take. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to talk about safety on the roads that our kids take to school every day. Sugar Grove Village President Jen Conan's statement back on February 5th, 2019, that she does not want her kids killed in a school bus accident on Route 47 is more relevant than ever. If these risks were unacceptable then, they remain so now. She seems to forget that she needs to worry about all of the children this will affect and not just her own. We cannot allow the safety of our students to become secondary to economic interests. I can't be the only one in this room who considers their students as my kids. How can we stand by and let our kids be exposed to so much harm? In closing, I urge the board to critically evaluate the long-term consequences of this development. Our priorities should align with the health, safety, and education of our kids. Let us not be swayed by uncertain financial gains at the cost of our community's well-being. Thank you for considering my perspective as a fellow educator.
Thank you for your comments. Forgive me again if I botch this, but Jim McCrinnan? Is that right? We actually. Oh. Okay. Thank you for your comment. Okay, we are going to move on to Katie Soderstrom.
Good evening. My name is Katherine Soderstrom, and I have been an Elburn resident since 2012. I'm also a licensed social worker who works in the surrounding area with a background in child development and working with children. My child currently attends Ignite Academy, also known as KIPLA, as a third grader, and has been enjoying her time in the personalized learning environment. Prior to her enrollment, she attended Blackberry Creek Elementary. During the various fall 2022 and spring 2023 open houses, my husband and I identified KIPLA as a target school to consider for our child based on her current and future anticipated academic needs. We were thrilled to hear the KIPLA program was projected to open in the 2023-2024 school year and applied for a spot. KIPLA is a thoughtfully developed program to encompass multiple areas of a personalized learning environment. Students start their day in an advisory session where they plan out what learning tasks will be completed and how they will do so. Throughout the day, students participate in several core instruction blocks, working individually and collaboratively with peers. Daily physical education and opportunities to grow knowledge in various artistic, musical, and STEM technologies in the Pathways instruction also occur. I see value in this program with its unique learning environment and believe that allowing students to have an active role in their educational process is crucial to developing active, engaged learners. Learners who use critical thinking skills, advocate for themselves and their peers, and desire to grow their existing knowledge base. These are all criteria which will serve these individuals in high school, college, and prepare them for the working environments of their future professions. Research supports this type of learning environment for students from a child development and growth perspective. The KIPLA program will develop and grow a cohort of students who are well prepared with experience in organizing executive functioning tasks, time management skills, project development and implementation, and advocacy for self and others. The KIPLA program format also supports an entrepreneurial mindset by providing a skill set for students who may consider this career path as well. The Kaneland School District has an opportunity to be a leader in the Fox Valley area by continuing to fully fund and develop the KIPLA program, which is one of the first in the state of Illinois to target the elementary and middle school age groups, and with proposed expansion into high school. Developing independent thinkers with the organizational skills to assess, plan, follow through, and evaluate is the goal of every school district, and Kaneland is no different. This program is an additional asset to the school district, and I would like to request the board continue to support and fund this program through its high school expansion. Investing in the students of the school district continues to be a worthwhile expense. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Dan Jallet.
So my name is Dan Jallet. I live in Elburn. I have 2 kids in the district. Gonna call Ms. Zollers out here. Both my daughters had Miss Hours, and they weren't thriving. And that's not a reflection of her work. It's just a reflection of the system. We went through COVID, and that was a struggle. My youngest had anxiety attacks, and the school tried to do the best that they could. Things didn't really change for my family. I'm going to get a little emotional here as a father. Things didn't really start to change for my family until my kids got to Ignite. I work with the internet. I think kids learn in a different way today, and they ingest information in a different way. I think the world's changed drastically. And I think that if we continue down the path of trying to teach kids the same way that we grew up learning, we're going to fail them. This personalized learning works. My kids are actually excited to go to school. I don't have to fight them to get to school. Actually, they're up and ready to go. I just want to bring a little personal note because everybody's kind of talking about the pros and cons of it from a higher level, but it really does impact families here. And on another matter, on a TIF, my wife and I grew up in Elmhurst. We saw what TIFs do to communities. We came to Auburn for that reason. I'll be more than happy to go further west.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up is Lynn Litka.
Everybody is making me cry now. My name is Lynn Litka. I live in Sugar Grove. I'm here to speak about KIPLA. I have two daughters in the district. One is currently at McDowell Elementary and she's thriving. And I have a 7th grader who is in Empower at Ignite, who is also thriving. And to be honest, she was thriving in school to begin with because our Canelan community is amazing. We have strong educators, we have strong parents, we are a community. And I think that's when we're thinking about KIPLA, we need to remember the bigger picture, the community. And that it's not just about me and my kids, it's about our kids and the kids that aren't here. And providing opportunities, like how many, I work in a district, pretty local. I've been there 21 years. We do not have personalized learning in our district. It's a very well-known district, but we don't have this. And here we have it right at our fingertips and we're almost letting it slip away. So I don't want us to lose sight of traditional school is, just like the gentleman before me said, you know, it worked for a while. It worked for us, sure. The world is different. Our kids are different. Their needs are different. And we now have pathways to meet multiple learners in different opportunities and different levels. So let's take that and run with it. Let's show all of our kids that they're important, not just the ones that fit into a certain mold, right? So thank you again for your time and your consideration. See if we can get creative, just like these. I'll bet you bring it to those KIPLA kids. They're going to probably solve the problems for you because I know my daughter has already started coming up with some ideas about ways that we can make this happen and make this continue for our community. Because again, it's not just about our little world here. It's about getting our kids ready for the future. And KIPLA is a fantastic way to do that. Thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you. We have 10 minutes left, so at this point I'll offer it to anyone who would like to come speak at this time. And keep in mind that there will be a public comment opportunity later on in the meeting. So whoever would like to come speak, same rules as before apply.
Hi, I'm Brian Soderstrom, also from Melbourne. My wife spoke earlier. And there's something that I just wanted to touch on that I don't know if it's really been addressed as much. So they talk about people have talked about the learning and how the kids are adapting to the program, how they have more opportunities to learn in different ways that haven't been offered in the past. From a perspective of employment, over the 20 years that I've been, in the full-time working world, you see that kids coming out of college now, they may have the knowledge base, but they can't use it practically. You know, people don't really understand how to actually use that practical knowledge to further their careers, to be able to come right out the chute and work hard and do the things they need to do in their professions. And this is a program that's going to teach people how to be able to better themselves throughout their life, how they're going to be able to address the working world in a way that we weren't really given as kids. We weren't able to come out of college and, even with the knowledge base we had, jump right into our career fields and be successful right away. You know, because we had to go through that process of learning and failing and realizing that the book answer is not always the right answer, and we have to find creative ways to do it. This is a program that teaches kids that at a very young age. That's going to allow them to be more successful in college. It's going to allow them to think outside the box and realize that the book can't answer every question, you know, and they need to be able to find other ways to do it, more creative ways to do it. This program is empowering kids to be able to step up and say, I think I have another way to solve this problem. I think I have another way to show you that I know what I'm doing besides taking a test, right? Because tests aren't always the answer. You can ace a test and fail your career. And vice versa. There are people that don't necessarily score well on tests, but can do it all day long. And we need to give people the opportunity to show that they know how to succeed in this world without thinking that it's got to be in the same box that we all grew up in. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Please consider keeping it. Please consider moving up the 8th graders into the high school program. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak at this time? Well, I'd like to thank you all for adhering to the 3-minute rule. It was impressive, and we definitely appreciate it from our perspective, especially those of you that had it written out and were right on the mark. It's impressive. So at this point, we'll move forward to the new business portion of the meeting, which will be the first item of new business is the public hearing and approval of administrative cost cap waiver for 2023-2024. And with that, I'll go ahead and begin the public hearing, right?
Yes.
And so it is now, do I get to do the gavel or no gavel? No, dang. It's now 7:33 and I'm calling the public hearing on the submission of 1-year waiver on ILCS 517 dash 1.5, the administrative cost limitation for 2023-2024. Dr. Fuchs or Mrs. Bogan, could you please provide more information? Mrs. Bogan.
Sure, thank you. We are here for the administrative cost cap waiver. The purpose of the administrative cost cap is to put limitations on the growth of administrative expenditures, is a way to really maximize the proportion of school district resources for instructional programming, building maintenance, and safety services that directly impact students. The limitation that was put in place on expenditures, it deals with 4 main categories. Those categories are executive administration services, so the superintendent, special area administration services, so the director of special education in our district, and then the direction of business support services, so Dr. Fuchs and myself in the business office, and then also a category of internal services. The limitation for expenditures each year is 5%. Anything over 5% requires for us to submit a waiver, and that's why we're here. In addition to this process, besides the public hearing, we're also required to complete several other pieces of notification. That includes posting on the district website, posting this in the local newspaper, notifying collective bargaining units in the district, and then also notifying state legislators. All of those requirements have been met. This year, the district is at 19% over the administrative expenses, and so we are asking for the waiver. There are 3, well, there's actually 2 main reasons why we're over that 5%. We have 3 senior level administrators that are in the retirement track. And pursuant to board policy, they each received a 6% increase for the 4 years while they were on those retirement contracts. As part of that succession planning, for the 23-24 school year, we also added one administrative position. That was the assistant superintendent for business role. And that position is for 1 year only and will not be repeated next year. So with those 4 positions, we are currently over, as I said, 19%. And the total dollar amount is $160,000 over. The 5% limit would be about $56,000. So that's some background. What questions can I answer?
The public has to make a comment.
Yeah,
Right now.
this isn't board time now.
okay.
This is
Got it.
you to share and then public comment.
So now's the opportunity for the public to. So now's the opportunity for anyone who wants to come speak specifically on this subject to address the board or the district. I'll give it just a couple more seconds. Okay, hearing no further comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:37 p.m. I will now open the discussion for the board on the approval of the administrative cost cap waiver for 2023-2024. Okay. So 19%, where is it 19% over the cap for a total of 24%?
No, it is 19% over prior year, so total. So it is 14% over the cap.
And historically, how often do we?
So this is not a regular occurrence. It does happen from time to time. Generally speaking, it is when there are retirements and multiple retirements. It is rare that you would have 3 senior administrators in these 4 areas, all within the retirement track at the same time. So that is rare, and it is highly unlikely that we would be seeking this waiver next year.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Hearing no further questions, I will entertain a motion that the board. Thank you, Mrs. Bogan. Hearing no other questions, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the resolution and direct the administration to submit a waiver to the Illinois State Board of Education to request a waiver from the Illinois General Assembly for a 1-year waiver on ILCS 517-1.5, the administrative cost limitation.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Dr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky?
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. The administrative cost cap waiver for 2023-2024 is approved. Okay, the second item of new business is the discussion of the Crown Industries proposed project in the Sugar Grove, the TIF topic. Dr. Layden.
Yep, I'll just give a thank you, President Gonzalez. Just as a brief update from the last Board of Education meeting, one of the topics, this is one of our 2 topics that we have on the agenda tonight that is a topic for future agenda. And so as we brought the information, the Board of Education wanted to seek more background, more information to be informed on the topic. So with that, tonight we've invited Village President Jennifer Conan and Village Administrator Scott Keppel, and they were both here to be able to answer questions. So with that, I'll return it back to the board to see if you want them to come up or if there's any board discussion first prior to any conversation with the Village Administrator and the Village President.
So I just wanted to highlight that this isn't, we're not going to be making a decision here today. It's more of an informational session with Sugar Grove to find out details, to ask any of the questions we want to ask, figure things out, and go from there, so that no decision will be made tonight from our perspective. But please, now's our chance to ask anything we want to ask.
I have questions. I have a few questions. Did you say they're going to come up and speak, or?
Yeah,
They could.
if
Yeah.
you're going to address them directly, they will
Yeah.
come up to the microphone. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for coming tonight.
I got a map of the project.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if this is important to say. We have so many people here. We're different boards, right? So there's why we're making a decision.
Correct, correct.
My first question is, what benefit would the TIF have for our school district? If you decide to approve it, what is our school district benefit and how?
Great question. We're going to tag team most of these answers, okay? The first thing is there's the area right now produces about $55,000 in tax increment that you get. The school board gets roughly 70% of that tax dollar. That's for 760 acres. So the benefit to development is really future tax base that the school will have. Throughout the course of the development, there would be impact fees that go to the school that we're still trying to figure out ourselves. But there's also, through the process and the design workshop that we're working on our end, is how do we have and work with them to negotiate a way where there is a holdback that we can surplus. So the one thing that you all hopefully are seeing as you're looking financially through your documents are the Village of Sugar Grove over the course of the last 4 years has surplused out of 2 existing TIF districts $1.5 million. Of that $1.5 million, because there are 2 school districts that are affected, it works out to roughly $600,000 of additional revenue. That is above and beyond your tax levy. So you're still getting your tax levy. This is additional dollars that flow through. The holdback really is that you're not capturing as part of your existing tax base. You're not adding that new increment today. You add it when the TIF expires. So we're still trying to flow revenue through to the all taxing bodies, not only the school board, but the park district and school, the library, townships, et cetera. Do you have anything to add to additional revenues? No. Okay.
So we don't get that additional revenue for 23 years, right?
You don't get the extra. You don't get
the extra from the increased assessed
You don't get the
valuation.
EAV gain for 23 years.
And we get residential units, and we're going to have students coming from the residential units.
We'll talk about that for a second.
Well, no, are we or not? I mean,
There's revenue associated with that.
So with the way that it works with the TIF from state statute, for every student that's added to the district inside the TIF district, you get 16, well, according to the numbers from your 2022 numbers for the cost to educate a student, you do get $16,113.44 per year. That money comes off the top of the TIF before any money gets distributed to the village or any agreements that we have. That money is distributed to the school district.
per student.
Per student, added to the district in the development itself, specifically.
No, it's state statute.
It's
It's
state
in the statute.
And that is dependent, of course, on your cost per student, which your administration calculates, and then it's publicly available.
So I have 2 kids in grade school, and if this were to pursue, they would both be on the same bus, going down 47, going to Harder. My greatest fear is the number of semi trucks on that road. How are you going to ensure the protection of the students, not just on my child's bus, the parents going to athletic games, sports games, buses going to John Shields, Montgomery, everywhere? What are you going to do to ensure that our students are going to be a priority and that they're going to be protected moving throughout our district?
Well, I will start by saying all lives are a priority, not just our children, but everybody traveling on the roads. Any development that happens down there, IDOT, the Illinois Department of Transportation, forces roadway improvements. So you can't develop that area today and have no changes made to 47. So turn lanes, traffic signals, signalized intersections at different points, those improvements would be made. I can't even guarantee for you, I know that there's a lot that you're reading on social media is probably where you guys are getting your information. But there is a lot, we don't know what the land use will be, okay? We don't have a formalized petition in front of the village today to say that it's just gonna be semi-increased traffic. That is a use that we know that they wanna bring forward, but it doesn't encompass 760 acres. And it might not happen because it also is dependent, I know there's articles out there that say they're not building spec buildings anymore because the interest rates are too high. So they're not building them to wait for a tenant, they're building them to suit. So that might not be where the market is. I certainly can tell you that from our perspective as a village and living in that community, we're focused more on data center, that it produces high property tax, and we'd be more interested in that than we would be truck traffic. But with that being said, trucks still visit data centers, just not as regularly as a distribution center would be. But I will tell you that they have to do some engineering on traffic. So that is what IDOT's gonna require of them, and those make the roadway improvements. So will there never be an accident? I can't guarantee anything, but there's accidents today. And all I can tell you is that signalized intersections would be going in if this development went through, and our board approved it, and it went through zoning, at CV Road, and also at a new future intersection at Scott and what would be Denny Extension. So those would be two traffic lights. Those would slow traffic down through this intersection. But again, there would be turn lanes and things like that IDOT would put on them. That's not up for us to say, that's IDOT.
Are you familiar with the warehouse districts to the east of you, east of the proposed one, along I-88, like the ones in Aurora?
The Panattoni building?
No, I'm talking about Aurora, Naperville.
I travel on 88 all the time, almost every day.
Okay, that's not the question.
I don't know.
I'm asking, are you familiar with those?
Like-
Well, you presume that we get all of our information from social media. You know,
Well, you're not
and
getting
that-
them
and
from
that-
us, sir.
Well, no, I'm asking you, are you familiar with those?
In what
warehouse-
sense? That they exist? Yes.
And how they were funded, how they were financed? Are they TIF?
Not sure.
So you don't know?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you know, Mr. Campbell? Keppel? I'm sorry.
I'm not, it is specific to look at it. Some have been, some have in the past, some have not. It just depends on the development itself. The reason for this one and the discussion about the TIF is, it's a very important part of TIF is but for. But for the TIF, this would not happen. It would not be developed because of the cost associated with it. It's something that has to be proven in the TIF process. There's an extraordinary amount of infrastructure, water, sewer, streets, and other that needs to go in order for this area to unlock and be developed. Once that's done, there's the possibility for other things near there, but that's the reason for it is the costs to get all the infrastructure in.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject.
Yeah.
But do you have actual data or actual studies that have shown that the cost of infrastructure is too high? I mean, is there any concrete evidence? Because I understand the argument that if the land wasn't there, I mean, if the land remained as it was, we get the tax revenue at what it currently is.
Yeah.
The incentive with the TIF is that it develops, and over the span of maybe some people's lifetimes before my kids will ever benefit, we'll be missing out on this tax revenue. But is there not opportunity for infrastructure to come in? I mean, has there been any studies? Because it's a valuable piece of land, especially with I-88 opening at 47.
Correct. So it is part of the process. It'll be more evident with the application because they need to prove to us the but for as part of the process. It'll be part of the discussion when the cost for all the water pipes, when the cost for the potentially a water tower and the roads that need to come in, all that will be brought up and studied by consultants from the village, and it'll be part of the overall discussion, but we won't have details or information identified until application comes in.
So as part of the TIF process, they have to prove that, otherwise it would be.
Correct.
So you don't know if Aurora or Naperville had to use TIFs. You have no knowledge if that they had to use TIFs for their warehouse districts along I-88, correct? I checked with both communities. They didn't. They didn't.
I would ask, did they have infrastructure in close proximity to those?
No, they had to build
development?
it out.
Okay.
Along Mitchell and some of the others. Oh yeah, no, they had to build it out.
We're not here to defend it, sir. We're just letting you know what we're faced with as a decision that has to come in front of our board. And we were asked to come here and let you know what this looks like for the school and the other taxing bodies. So I know that it's very clear that you are not happy with this, and that's okay. We're not here to defend it.
Don't presume to tell me what I'm hearing. We don't get the money for 23 years. During the meantime, we have students we have to educate. We have doors we have to keep open. We have students who need the education. We're going to add on to, who knows what type of residential you're going to go with. There's just been a lack of transparency on the part of Sugar Grove and leadership. No, don't give me that look. There's been a lack of transparency and a lack of preparedness. For heaven's sakes, we know the warehouse districts in Naperville, in Aurora, and your district isn't, it's going to be something different. They did it without a TIF.
Could you give an example of the lack of transparency, please, so we can try to clear the air on that? Because I'm unsure what we haven't presented. When we don't have an application, we don't have details on what happened. I'd love to answer your question.
Okay.
Let's keep in mind that while this is a passionate subject, we also have to maintain composure and treat our guests with the same respect they give us.
Yeah.
And so I understand that a lot of us have have passionate feelings, but let's try and maintain civility if you wouldn't mind.
So my question is, obviously, just like President Gonzalez just said, a lot of people want information. We appreciate you coming here today to answer some of the questions and stuff. But back to board responsibility. What is our responsibility for this besides, I appreciate too, being able, people to come out to our public comment to, speak their voice and for us to be able to hear. And so we can also know as a community, as board members, what we need to do for our schools and what we need to do for our students and stuff like that. Definitely that's the goal of our board. But when it comes to making decisions moving forward from this, what is our role as a board? We know.
I can answer part of that. So there's a JRB or a joint review board that's gathered whenever a new TIF is created, and all the taxing bodies have a seat as well as a resident member on the joint review board. So there will be a representative from the Kaneland School District on the joint review board. I don't know who you would choose as a body to send, but that is part of the role that you play in this process.
Thank you.
So so let's say we have our joint review board representative. We as a board decide that Mrs. Simmons is going to go and represent us. Then at that point, we would probably have to send Mrs. Simmons with the consensus of how the board feels, right? So we still at some point have a decision to make and then to take before that. That's why when I say we're not making a decision right now, there's still decisions that will need to be made on the part of the school district. And so that's something to take into consideration.
Well, it's new for us. We've never experienced this. So for a board, we have absolutely we don't know what we don't know yet. So if there's any guidance or any administration wise too, what does this look like for us moving forward? Again, we do this because we want to make sure we have, the community is hearing, we're hearing from them back and forth, that open conversation, but then where do we take this from moving forward?
I think the feedback from, I think it was October when we met, was to table any decision, table any action until you could gather and learn more information. Hence the invitation tonight to learn more of that information. So as President Gonzalez said, it's not pending for a decision tonight or immediately. It's as the board gets the information, has more information, and then makes an informed decision of what the board wants to do moving forward.
Well, and to be honest, it wouldn't even be appropriate because there's too many variables. They haven't filed yet. We don't know exactly what's been presented to us. Yeah, this is purely informational, and from a process standpoint, from answering the questions that we need to ask, that's the intent here. Is to gain as much information as we can. That way, when it does come, we're at a point where we're more comfortable.
Right.
It's new.
Well, I mean, for me, I feel like this is the first time I've been told that one of us will represent our board on a board. So this is new for me to understand. Like for me, this is very informational because again, our priority is our families, and again, like what was said that, we want to provide the best education and environment for our kids. And so we want to understand what's going on. But this is, like I said, is there anything else besides that? Not besides, but like I said, this is the first time I'm hearing that one of us will represent us on that board. So
Typically at those boards, it's an administrator. So Dr. Fuchs or myself or superintendent or business official over the years have attended those meetings. We get the joint review board information. We get all of that and usually share with our board. As this process took place over the years, we would share that information of possible TIFs, of possible projects. So at least the board's aware, case by case, what that might look like.
Process wise, and maybe you guys can help. You go through that process before it comes to the review board. Do I understand that right?
Just the TIF portion? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, just to make sure. Yeah.
The public hearing is.
So so there's
There's
a lot
steps.
of
Okay.
there's steps to it. So there's the creation of the TIF itself,
Right.
which before the TIF is created, there's the joint review board meets, and there's also a public hearing and a village board meeting before the village board votes to create the TIF. And then that's just to create the TIF itself. There's other steps involved in it. We've released an eligibility report that looked at whether or not it's eligible to be a TIF there. That's on the village's website. So that's the only thing that has been done to date officially with the TIF. Then there's another step. There's something called the redevelopment agreement, and that's then between the village and any party doing business that would have some type of incentive inside the TIF. But that's outside of the creation of it. The creation is where the GRB meets, and then there's an annual meeting as well. The village has to have by law for every single TIF where we can report to the taxing districts what we're doing with the funds from the TIF.
Okay, so maybe I'm not as clear about that. So can we back up for a second? In that JRB meeting, and the TIF is sorry, I'm thinking out loud. As the TIF is being created, and a member of the committee said, "But I don't want the TIF."
There is a vote,
Okay.
and there's a recommendation of the village board, but the final authority on the creation of the TIF lies with the village board.
Okay, so okay, so that's what I was trying to think. So, because at the end of the day, it's really we weigh in, but it's really your decision. Is that's right?
The final decision.
Right.
Correct.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we as a district don't have a powerful voice.
Oh, I don't disagree. We're a pretty big taxing authority.
Right.
Because you're talking about us, the park district, the library district,
Fire,
police.
Townships.
Okay.
Township Road, the county.
But you're right. We have
You're the majority of the tax.
So what do you have any sense of a timeline in terms of things being filed, things being
Seems
finalized?
like a loaded question. I thought for a long time it was going to be August of last year, and then it was September and October, and then holidays hit, and we, didn't want to do that. So here we are, and thinking maybe in the next, hopefully 60 days or so but they might not. I mean, I think that's still the other thing that people don't understand is they might not petition at all. It would be more on their end if they didn't. They're meeting with staff to review some of our, like as an example, road standards. And there's a discussion about road standards and how roads need to be constructed. Well, you have to figure that out before you come with an application. So that's kind of a conversation that needs to happen. Having conversations with the other taxing bodies. What does this look like for you? What are your needs? What is the tuition per student? All of that stuff has to be figured out. So that's my speculation. He would know better maybe than I do.
And it's not just the TIF. There's also annexation, which is an incredibly, it's an incredibly long document, especially for a project of this size and this diversity. There's going to be residential, commercial, parks, and industrial. It's not just the potential for different types of industrial uses up by 88. There's several in there, so it's a very large and complicated project that's going to be phased in potentially up to 10 years to do the full build out. So they want to make sure that they have everything, and we do as well as the village ahead of time, have discussed and gone over our rules with them and looked at them and articulated that so that it can be in the annexation agreement. Because right now it's not in the village. All the their property is unincorporated Kane County. So we have to go through the annexation process, and then they need to learn like our rules for water, how we do all those different things, and translate that to them so they know what they're getting into.
Is our legal team going to be able to advise us? I know we signed the waiver and we've secured counsel on behalf of us. Are they going to be able to advise us on? Because I kind of feel like Mrs. Simmons. I out of last meeting I learned that we have a seat at this joint review board, but I kind of feel like, and there's only I don't know, we need a legal expert, and no offense to the Village of Sugar Grove, but we need an unbiased expert to come in and tell us, these are your rights. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. Here's all the information. Make an informed decision based on, I mean, is that something that?
Yes, yes. I shared with Attorney Ken, Attorney Ken Flory, who is representing our district on this matter, shared with him tonight that this discussion will be taking place. He's going to get a copy of the video, the questions, and then he shared whenever the board would want him back, he is able to come back, answer questions, provide updates as needed whenever the board would request.
Okay. I jotted some notes, so I want to make sure that I asked them. I'm sorry, I
No, you
digitally
take-
today
it's
on the
fine,
computer.
we're here.
Yeah, I think my big thing was the feasibility study for the infrastructure, but for the TIF. You know, can we not incentivize this big corporation to develop and, you know, still see the developments? But we've already
If it was
discussed it.
realistic, if we could do it without it, I mean, it's certainly not the first thing we want to do. But it's one of those where the math looks like it would have to be that way for it to happen.
So unfortunately, it's not an engagement with the audience. There is
That's the whole problem. So there's no engagement.
there's a second opportunity for public comment. And while we're not engaging, is that something that, you know, we should discuss as a board? Do we want to? I don't know where we go with it, because I think
Yeah, our current practice is in policy right now, so the board, by honoring this, is following what the policy is at this time.
And the hard part is we want to hear the community, but we're also, our perspective is the school, the kids, the community. And so sometimes I think some comments might be more towards you versus what there's parameters I think we would need to, we had further conversations.
no, I agree. I agree.
You know,
I agree. Our theme is that we want to hear the voice of the community. We want to hear, and it's difficult. And at the end of the day, it's not our decision. There are things we can do, but it's on the village. So, anything else at this time? Any further discussion?
Scrambling, so I just don't want you to leave and have a question. So
You can
I
email
had
us.
some
and
to
then-
carry
Yeah, contact us anytime. We're happy to come back or, come in and meet. Happy to do that.
Yeah, I think we'd appreciate an open channel of dialogue, whether it be email or whatnot, if we have questions. Just to be able to, from the village's perspective, get an understanding, to clarify on things as it goes on. Because I know I'm gonna go home and have a question and that I didn't think of, and I'm sure we all will, right? And so maybe just keep this dialogue going through this process and see where we arrive.
Well, I can speak for my other, taxing bodies that I communicate with that have my number, my cell phone number is listed on the village website. Our emails are online. You can contact us anytime. We're pretty responsive. So if you have questions that pop up, as documents come forward that we have, they will be shared the moment we receive them. And so they will be online, but we'll make an effort to make sure that they're directly shared with every taxing body so that they don't have to go fishing for them.
Specifically TIF documents, we send all the taxing bodies as soon as they get sent out. We have an interested parties list for members of the community that may want to sign up as well. But we do get those things out to the taxing body right away, and then we put them up and make them available on our website.
And then you guys will, I'm sure they'll give them to you and you'll disseminate them to us as they come through. Okay. Well, with no further questions, there's no vote this evening, so yeah, no action. But we'd like to thank our guests for taking the time to come out and speak.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we are moving to J3, which we, based on the amended agenda, is going to be the, forgive me while I get organized, H6 from the previous consent agenda. Which I have here. Forgive me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Yes,
Layden.
yes, thank you. With that, Dr. Fuchs, and I know Mrs. Bogan will be able to answer questions, address any questions, because I know it was polled by Ms. McCauley, so we'll be able to find out those questions. And I also know that Mr. Krita, our architect of record, and Mr. Payton, director of operations and buildings and or director of buildings and grounds, can answer the questions that come as part of H6. So with that, Ms. McCauley, questions we're able to answer.
Yeah, I just wanted to verify that this was voted on previous board, correct? We didn't vote on this. I just wanted kind of more background on it. What specifically, is the money being spent on? Is this across the entire district? What is this, what does this project all entail?
Sure. I'll start and then I'll let Mr. Payton, Mr. Curtis fill in as needed. First of all, the school district every 10 years is required to do a life safety survey. That requires an architect to come in to find out where we need to do projects to be up to code. Once they do their 10-year life safety survey required by law, then they tell us what projects are needed. Those projects are prioritized. All of our projects were required to be done within 5 years. Unfortunately, we don't get money from the state to do these mandated required projects. So what we did was we split up the projects over the 5 years. And the last 3 years, we've been focusing. 3 years ago, we did doors and windows, although that carried over because of COVID a little bit into the next year. Last year, we did plumbing projects, and this year we've identified electrical projects. With regard to the specific projects, I'll let Mr. Krita and Mr. Payton come up and talk a little bit about what kinds of projects. They're not glamorous, they're required. So, do you want to tell a little bit about what will be done for the life safety portion? While they're coming up, I want to mention that none of the projects that are required to be done would need to be redone or undone should the referendum pass in November. Go ahead, projects.
It's like Dr. Fuchs said, nothing glamorous, nothing a lot of people will even notice. It's additional exit lights, emergency lights, fire alarm detection and notification, fire alarm upgrades, a lot of things like that.
Yes, large portions of intercom system here at Harder Nights.
Yeah, intercom upgrade here.
Yeah, I was just concerned that if the referendum is approved, that there's no redundancy, that we're not wasting money spending here and then overdoing it. So that's not going to have any impact at all.
And I think you asked if it was spread across the district. This work is in 5 of our 7 buildings. So it's Shields, Stewart, Meredith, Harder, and the high school.
Okay.
Because they were all in that same 10-year life safety survey grouping.
Okay. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have 3 alternates that we put out there with the bid. We are recommending that we accept 2 of the 3. The 2 that we want to do, we're adding additional outlets in the 4 elementary school teacher lounges. They've had some issues with regard to microwaves, coffee pots, things like that. So we want to upgrade that electrical while we have the electricians on site. And secondly, Harder Middle School needs additional IP devices in order to support the technology and the teaching and learning. We did not accept the installation of hand dryers at the high school. We would still like to do that someday, but the cost came in more than double what we had estimated. And by not doing that one, we were able to stay within our estimated budget, and we feel that that's more fiscally responsible.
That's all the questions that I had.
So forgive my ignorance, but $844,000 for, so you say exit signs. What's the big expense here? What lights, or what's the electrical portion component that's the biggest?
There's a few things. There's some significant upgrades to the fire alarm systems that have to happen at Shields, Stewart, and Meredith, because the manufacturer of those systems doesn't support those devices anymore. So it's a complete change out of those devices. And then intercom here at Harder Middle School, the upgrade to that. is a big one. And then it's just, you know, a lot of those things don't cost a lot. Adding an exit sign, or adding a smoke detector, or adding a visual detector for fire alarm, individually doesn't cost a lot, but when you start to add up all of the different locations we have to do that in, that's where it starts to add up, you know.
If, for transparency purposes, is it possible to start seeing this information at a more granular level so we understand that, you know, we're spending 100,000 on the fire suppression systems, or because
Are you talking about the projects? Because the projects were brought to the board. I could bring those projects back, the list, but we're almost done now, the life safety projects. If you're talking about the bid itself,
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the $844,000. I'd like to see it at a granular level. Where's all this money going? Is that possible?
Well, there's bid documents that would get really granular if you want to see the details. We could do an overview, give you a little bit more sense of what's happening in each building. That might have been portrayed to the board before this went out for bid, before the project became a project. But certainly glad to give you an overview of what's in here by, you know, number of devices or something like that. I certainly wouldn't want to drag you through the building and point where every component's going. But
no, I would, and I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone else.
And that's why I pulled it, because of that large amount. I wasn't familiar with it. When I see a large number like that, I just want to know, okay, what specifically are we doing? Lights in the theater? Are we, you know, doing something in a parking lot? When we're, you know, we see this large number and we're going to vote on it, and it's, you know, we want to know specifically what it is, and taxpayers are looking at it too. They want to go, okay, where's our money going? Because all I see is a large number.
One of the things that makes it challenging is the time arc of all of this, because you do the life safety survey, then those results are brought to the board, you know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and then we start rolling these projects through. And so, yeah, I mean, to a degree, the board has changed over, so you didn't see that necessarily. Still available, we can share that with you, but it's a lengthy document of different items that need to be addressed, and in this case, we get 5 years to do that. So yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, but it's just such a long time frame that it takes place over. Things get forgotten and stuff.
But even to that point, every year you bring back, what time of the year do you bring us that list? Where it's all the summer projects, all the things that are proposed. It also has on the list of what are the life safety have to do's and stuff like that. So we do get that list every year.
in the spring,
In the spring. So
June, May, June, depending on how quick we can get it pulled together.
so that is specifically broken down. So the previous board before you guys would have seen a list. We saw a list of all the things and specifically the items that have to get done stuff. And so that's kind of where we figure out what projects we are going to do, which comes to the top and stuff. So those are the ones that we have to. So just so you know, previous board had that information from them. So it's not something 3 years ago we were given and not 3 years later, you know, we're not seeing it. They do. Dr. Fuchs does bring that back to us every year.
Two things. One is, that's the reason why we divided this one into 3 projects, major projects, because of the high costs of the required nature of it. We tried to focus each year on something different in order to get them all done. And secondly, the good news is we get to do McDowell and Blackberry next year, because it's already 10 years since we had done those before. So you'll get to start from the very beginning of that life safety survey. It's coming right up.
I get that process, and we've been through it, and we've seen the documents, and I think we decided this was like the electrical year, and there was going to be like a plumbing. You guys did it in certain. I remember all of that.
Okay.
I guess the thing that I'm asking for is when you guys are saying, hey board, approve this bid. It's like any bid. If I get a bid to do something on my house, I want to see, okay, well, this is how much it's going to cost to put the toilet in, and you know, maybe whatever, 30 toilets, but at least we can. It's more transparent. And if we want to get that deep into it, we can then go look back 3 years on our own time if we're bored on the weekend and say, oh, okay, this ties into what we approved back then. Because for me, it's just a big number. It's like, what could be lumped in there, you know?
We had warning that it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. We'd be happy
Any other? Okay, so we do have to take action because it was on consent agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion that the board directs the administration to execute a contract with Light Construction, Inc. for the completion of the summer electrical projects in the total amount of $862,700, which includes alternates of installing additional electrical outlets at 4 elementary schools and installing additional IP devices at Canelan Harder Middle School.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Uh, motion carries 6-0. Okay, so next up is item J4, newly J4, which is the Canelan Ignite Personalized Learning Academy discussion.
Yes, thank you. Again, as one of our previous topics, as this information was shared and as communicated to the community, questions came to the Board of Education, and then the board posed some questions back to administration to provide some information tonight. So as part of the presentation, you'll saw in the presentation that there's background information, the board questions that are addressed, as well as startup costs, staffing, some of those topics that were part of the discussion. And also there's no action for this tonight. This is purely informational. Mrs. Garland.
Okay, well, thank you. We are quite excited to be able to have some time tonight to talk about Ignite Academy. While we'll specifically focus on the expansion from 8th to 9th grade and where we are in that process, we also wanted to start by just providing some context. Don't know who is running the PowerPoint, but if someone, Mr. Rowley. I nominate you. Thank you very much. So we'll start by giving you just a little bit of context before we get into some of the real specific logistics. And we really wanted to start globally with what is the purpose of Ignite Academy? Why was this school created? What are we hoping to accomplish by providing the structure within Caneland? And that really, I think, will set the stage for some of the logistics to follow. So as you've heard from some of the public comments that were even made last week and this week as well, what students are expected to be able to do to experience success in college, community, careers, in this information age that we are now in is very different than what was expected in past eras. The manufacturing era expected something very different from the skilled worker than is what is required today. And so with that does come the need to make some adjustments in how we're preparing students. We have in Caneland really focused on a district-wide philosophy of providing students with opportunities to have a level of ownership within their own learning, to really bring them into that process. That is district-wide. We have worked to transition instruction away from the traditional heavily teacher-directed, very much the role of the student being a passive vessel that's filled with pre-existing knowledge with little opportunity to question or engage in their own learning. Throughout the district, we have transitioned to provide students with opportunities to have a voice and choice within their learning, to connect their learning to areas of interest, to engage in questioning and problem solving and problem creation. Those are structures that are across the district, and you would see in the 10 tenets of personalized learning that we have previously shared. Ignite Academy provides a unique opportunity to really take that to a deeper level that's simply not possible when you have the constraints of a traditional school structure. So in public education, students are still broken up into age spans, chronological age groups. We do still have bell schedules that dictate when learning starts and when learning stops. Those are traditional structures that societally we are just not in a place to completely get rid of all of those. Ignite Academy is an area where we have been able on a very small scale to remove those traditional constraints, and that has allowed us to approach learning differently. So within Ignite Academy, our students do have the opportunity to progress at their own pace. They are housed in multi-age grade spans that allow them to learn across learning continuums within their classrooms, they're learning alongside peers that are at a variety of instructional levels. And so therefore they can progress not just based on where their chronological age is, but across multiple grade levels of academic standards. In terms of infusing voice and choice within their own learning, in our smaller structure, we are able to have students meet in advisory groups. They meet with their classroom teachers. Our students have opportunities to reflect on their current academic data. They conference with their teachers, and they co-construct their own learning pathways. So our students use their own academic data and social emotional learning data to decide the depth of instruction they're ready to proceed to. That's done in conjunction with conferencing with teachers to ensure that there's that's a logical and purposeful step for them. But they get to have a choice in what does my schedule look like today? What type of standards am I ready to proceed to next? Am I interested in an informational standard or a literature-based standard? Understanding that all of our students master all of the same standards, the order in which they master them, the pace at which they master them, the specific like content that they want to use to master that standard, they have a voice within all of those areas. So the rigor of those academic standards is consistent. It's the way in which students have the opportunity to move through those that's different. So they do progress based on their own individual proficiency levels. It is not a time-bound system. Students progress when they are ready, when they've demonstrated proficiency, and they have a voice and choice in how they choose to demonstrate proficiency within their learning. Throughout the entire system, our students engage in co-constructed feedback conferences with their teachers. And so a traditional feedback conference might sound very much like an instructor communicating to a student, here is what you've done well, here are your next steps in learning. It's very much delivered to the student. In a co-constructed conference, which is utilized district-wide, not just at Ignite Academy, the students take an active role in that. So the students are bringing their data to that conference. The students are communicating where they are in their learning. The students are communicating their next steps in learning. And it's more of a conversation between the teacher and the student rather than the teacher doing all the talking and the student just following directions. But the student questioning, the student advocating, the student reflecting on their own learning and bringing all of that into the process. So much greater level of involvement on the part of the student. And then in terms of engaging in elective course opportunities, although we do not follow a traditional exploratory schedule like at the elementaries or a traditional exploratory wheel, our students do engage in pathway courses where they construct, propose, develop projects that tie in technology, science, the arts, all of the types of things that would traditionally be covered in an elective course are built into their pathway projects where the students create that proposal, they submit that proposal, it's approved based on criteria that's been established. They work towards proficiency in the same way that students do within elective courses at our traditional schools, but they themselves are the ones creating the projects.
So the students are able to make their own PBLs based upon standard, tied to learning standards.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the criteria on the proposal that they submit is it has to be tied to a standard. So we
interdisciplinary PBLs.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of conversation. I think I've heard Mr. Wright, who actually is here tonight, say it's not a craft. It's not it's not arts and crafts. It is content, it's rigorous, it's tied to curricular standards, and that is a learning opportunity for our students. I think that's what you've heard a little bit is the role of the student and how we're teaching them to be more critical and reflective of their own learning. Is we do have students who attempt to propose, this would really be a cute project. That's not what Pathways Courses is. And so what's unique about that conversation is helping the students understand what rigor is, what is a curricular standard, what is the purpose of this, what learning will be involved, how will you grow as a student, and those types of reflective conversations don't happen when a student is just given a project to complete.
Have you measured student satisfaction? Satisfaction. What measurement have you taken so far, and what's your feedback been so
So we utilize a Castle survey district-wide, and so we give that same survey that evaluates multiple areas. The feedback so far has been very high, very consistent. Students self-assess on that Castle survey on a scale of 1 to 5 in regard to specific like sentence stems that they're provided. And so I feel that I have a choice in my own learning. I feel supported in my learning. It also goes to some of the social emotional. I feel like I have friends. I feel like I belong. I feel like my teachers support me in my learning. All of our scores on those have been high. It's a matter of fact, one of the goals that we're measuring, and we've seen increase in just about every area from our fall administration to our winter administration. Okay, so that's a little bit of context. We'll move into then some of the logistics that you specifically asked about as well.
Thank you. As a component of this, the board requested kind of a status update as far as our student enrollment and our staffing allotments. And so I'm here to share that with you tonight. We currently have 97 students enrolled at KIPLA. When we came to you with the minimum staffing plan back in March, we had 103 kids. So we have fluctuated 5 or 6 students plus or minus. It's open enrollment, so there isn't a requirement for a given student to attend. Instead, there's that set of attributes of the type of learner that might do well at KIPLA, and parents and students can opt to go to the Personalized Learning Academy. These students the number of students we have give us an average of 19.4 to 1. So the way you read that 0.4 as a board is that there'll be some classes that are at 20, some classes that are at 19, and then also there's a lot of flexible grouping at KIPLA where a teacher might have more than 20 at a given period of instruction so that someone else can have a smaller group of students for a given period of instruction. So there's some variance there. Our staffing allotment, currently we have 16.7 staff over at KIPLA. We have a 0.5 academy principal, so that's Mrs. Garland, who is doing that for us now and doing a wonderful job with that. We have 10.2 staff members, 5 classroom teachers, 2 special education teachers, 2 pathway teachers. I put similar to exploratories, and that doesn't do it justice. As we heard from Mrs. Garland, our pathways teachers have a much more robust component that they do. Instead of just focusing on just art or just music, they do a lot more to incorporate those interdisciplinary components. We have a 0.5 social worker that was increased this fall to a 1.0 social worker. And then we have 0.2 music. So we have a music teacher that comes in the morning to do a period of music for our students. We have 5 support staff members, a head cook, 2 paraprofessionals. I'd want to point out here that regardless of where the students are, we would have those 2 paraprofessionals. So if those 2 students were at different buildings, we would have those 2 parapros. So yes, they are at KIPLA and they're part of the KIPLA staffing, but they would be part of district staffing regardless.
Dr. Atkins, any counselors?
We don't have any counselors for KIPLA.
At Ignite.
Correct. We do have 1 building nurse, and we have a 12-month secretary. The 2 staff members for our monitor are the other FTE to give us our 16.7 FTE, and it's 1 position but 2 people that split the role. So split our lunch monitor.
So I just got a quick question.
Yeah.
I know we got a lot of emails from the parents. I didn't know anything about it as far as the 9th grade. We it's not something we voted on. What was the reason? A lot of parents stated that they were promised, guaranteed that the school would move to the 9th grade level. What was the administration's thoughts, or what were your thoughts that it's not going to work? You pulled back.
There's a variety of components that go into that answer, some of which are going to be discussed by other people here. So we're getting a little bit ahead of the presentation, so I don't want to steal their thunder, but know that anytime we're looking at staffing allotments for the future year, there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of balancing our resources, our minimal resources in some respects, with all of the needs. And so figuring out where those things can go, and having conversations from everything to differentials and stipends, sports and athletics, to AP offerings at the high school. often, very often, we end up with an opportunity to say, do we have enough students to run this? What are the costs for it? Is it a viable option to us for us to run something or not run something? So separate from the KIPLA specific question, in the general staffing question is that that's an ongoing component, and from year to year, it's difficult to know whether or not there will be enough students enrolled, enough supports available, resources available to run any given program when it's a highly specialized program. So that's just an in general staffing concern.
I think it's a Dr. Atkins question.
Okay.
So these numbers here, and I'm speaking specifically the student enrollment numbers that you've given us on the student enrollment slide. That's the 2023, 2024 school year. That's the current.
That's the
school year.
December hard count.
Now, open enrollment's closed for KIPLA for next year, correct? Or is it still open?
Not till April for grade 3.
So we won't know those numbers until April. Okay.
For grades 2 through 8.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and keep in mind too, and again, this is probably stepping back into the more generalized staffing, how we handle enrollment. We do have to take a snapshot of the district at a point in time in order to project and predict. That's why when we bring the staffing plan to you, its full title is the minimum staffing plan, because then from that point on, we monitor enrollment and adjust accordingly. When we've had to add program, we always have come to the board, and the board's been very judicious to allow and allot and approve those requests when we bring them forward, just like the additional 0.5 social worker for KIPLA this fall. But in order to do the large scale planning that is involved in running a school district and preparing for staffing for the following year, we have to take a snapshot, and that's that December enrollment. So even though for example, stepping outside of KIPLA again, just to draw the analogy, we haven't had our kindergarten roundup yet. And so as we're looking at numbers, I can take kindergarten right now and roll it up to first, easy, first to second, easy. But we don't know what kindergarten is going to look like until we do the registration. So we have some predictors that we use to help us with that. But then if we were to have another 30 kindergartners come in May, we bring that to the board to discuss it, figure out how to manage that, and to allot staff for it. And we would do that for any program.
So I know we're going to talk about ninth grade later, a couple slides from now, but staffing wise and registration wise, are people allowed to register for ninth grade? And is there a possibility if we get an influx of students that want the ninth grade, would that come to us later on?
I don't believe that there's an opportunity to register for ninth grade.
In consultation with the high school, the difficulty is the calendar and Mr. Rowley might be better, but it's the timeline of high school registration that's causing.
So we looked at a couple different opportunities to generate as much interest as possible. We had an open house night specifically for current 8th grade families, and then we also had an additional one for all families across the district in third through ninth grade. When all of those interest forms came back, and the numbers aren't here in a little bit, we're looking at roughly 15 students that had expressed interest. There's about 10 that are currently in the academy that we know would want to be back in the ninth grade structure, and then we had 5 that are current 8th graders at Harder. When we looked at all of that and coming to the point in the year right now where registration is happening, it's an ongoing process today. It started last week and today, as we start to look at the impact that does have on staff members and scheduling and all of those pieces. We had to have that hard cutoff to be able to do that. What we didn't want to do is register them to KIPLA and not have the enrollment or the finances to provide that, and then have to go and undo those schedules to work them back into the Kaneland High School enrollment, class sizes, sectioning, those pieces like that come later on. That would come probably beyond our minimum staffing plan.
Thank you. That makes that connection of why everybody else can register until April, but the high schoolers couldn't. That helps. Thank you for sharing that.
So what are they being told now? So if I have a prospective, let's say I have a prospective student that's going to go, or I want to go to KIPLA, and I'm saying, well, I want to put them in, but I don't know if my third grader, by the time she gets to that level, there will be a high school opportunity. What's the expectation right now?
For the continuation to the high school
Beyond
years.
8th grade, yeah.
Very similar to what we do for all of our clubs, activities, our current courses at the high school. Sometimes those don't always run, even though students have selected them or shown interest in them. So we will always look to continue to build that and build growth and build excitement to get those numbers. And as more and more students show interest, we're afforded a little bit of flexibility with staff members and certifications and what they can teach at the time. Right now, for what will be 3rd through 8th graders next year, we did have an open house. They very similar with an interest form, but there is, again, that leeway with registration into the month of March and April and through the summertime, because those, when we look at our teaching staff at the high school, oftentimes those are broken down into 0.2 and 0.4 increments in what they're teaching and in what their schedules look like throughout the day. So we try to finalize that through a scheduling process as early as possible. When we know at the elementary school that anywhere pretty much between 18 to 25, 26 kids is going to guarantee me a 3rd grade teacher, at the high school, it might be 0.2 teaching French, 0.2 teaching French 3, which are vastly different classes. So we do that a little bit earlier than at the K through 8 levels. Going into the future, again, it is something that we continue to look at. We'll talk a little bit at the end of what we can do next year in the meantime for those students that have expressed interest. There's some opportunities to have them together in a homeroom now that we have that at our high school, where they can get some of those similar approaches. I don't want to say structures because it would be at the high school still, but still have that group together that has experienced or shown interest to work with them in some extended personalized way.
Any other staffing? So I know that there's overlap, and so you'll be looking at some pieces about the future, some pieces about programming, and some pieces about staffing. But is there anything else for staffing I can turn it over to my colleagues? No? Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to start with budgeted expenses for the 23-24 school year. Really, it's broken down into a couple of major costs. The largest area is in staffing, and that includes salary and benefits that were budgeted for KIPLA for this year. Total staffing is $847,704, and that includes the staffing from the staffing plan. We've estimated utility costs for the building. Those costs are about $82,000, and that's sewer, electricity, gas, water, all of that. 40% of the building is attributed to KIPLA, and then the other 60% is attributed to Fox Valley Career Center. So, you know, it is a shared space. We also have about $90,000 estimated in custodial costs for the year for that. One of the questions that the board has asked for, and there's been a lot of interest in, is what are the estimated costs per pupil? We do not have an actual cost at this time. We do have a budgeted estimated cost, and it's just over $16,000. That falls within, if we do a look back at last year's site-based budgeting, that falls within the range of tuition per pupil for the district. Our range for our elementary buildings is between about $14,000 to $16,000 per student. At the middle school level, it's about 16,000, 16 and a half, and then at the high school, it's just over 17. So what we're seeing that estimated is falling right within that range for district spending. The actual will be available for the 24 school year in August of 2024, and that's because at that time, site-based expenditure reporting, which is required by the state, will be completed, and then that information will be available. So we'll have actual costs then. There were some startup costs for KIPLA. There were operational startup expenses, $330,000. Furniture expenses is a new building, just over $150,000. And then also new curriculum expenses at $142,000. We did include the cost here for the Canelan Meredith Academic Center parking lot, and that was $768,000. That project was slated to happen regardless if Kipla had opened or not. And the reason being was that parking lot had been on the capital needs project for quite a few years. And so it got to the point where it needed to be done. That building had been used by Fox Valley Career Center and is still being used. And that building was also regularly used from the time it closed as a school up until even today by the community and for other events, community groups at the high school.
I got a question about the operational. Is
Sure.
that like a one-time fee? What does a 330?
Yeah, so some of those operational startup costs were things like, fixing lights, fixing plumbing, putting in water bottle fillers, that maybe weren't in the building. Some of those things to get it up and ready, really for use as a school building. Even though Fox Valley Career Center was using it, they were using one section of the building. And so with Kipla coming in and using more of the building, we definitely needed to do some physical upgrades and operational related things to that.
And that again with the furniture as well. That's
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't every school have a furniture budget? So like every year they get certain.
There would. This is larger than a typical school would have in any given year, much larger. That's sort of getting like all the desks you need, all the blackboards, all the chairs, other
And they
tables.
did not buy all new furniture. They used a mix of some new and some existing. So the classrooms have a little bit of both.
Yeah. Any other questions I can answer? Thank you.
Taking a look at specifically for ninth grade and what those logistical needs would have been. We have space set out right now that is set aside for our 3rd through 5th grade spans, a separate set of spaces that are available for our 6th through 8th grade spans. So we were looking at a 3rd set for our high school. With high school, there are different needs. There's different social emotional growth. So we looked at 3 classrooms essentially to outfit 3 classrooms and then a collaborative learning space that would be on par with what we currently have for our Inspire group and our Empower group. So part of what we'll look at in a second and just projecting out what some of those needs and what those costs would look like, we identified for this initial rollout, if we were looking at anywhere between 30 to 50 students, we could outfit 3 classrooms, and then there's a portion of the one of the west wings of that building that could service as a collaborative learning space. So those spaces are identified in the building. They currently, some house desks, some do not. Some have projectors on carts, some do not. So there would be some technology pieces that would go into that. And then what we would do, and we'll look at a proposed schedule that we shared, it would be a hybrid attendance between the physical Caneland High School and the academy. Ideally, if we were running a high school section in 9th through 12th grade, we would be able to outfit an entire high school, but that's not a reasonable consideration with the number of electives that we run and in the staffing and physical space that were required for that. We do have students that do have to get their electives, so the way we looked at the schedule would be portions of their day, in particular in the morning at Caneland High School. They would then be transported over to the academy where they would engage in 2, it would be the same content, the same learning standards, the same expectations that would be housed in essentially a STEM type block of math and science and a humanities block with their English and their social studies. And then there would be opportunities to expand on that, expand on possible leadership opportunities. And our students would also get their typical homeroom period or advisory period in PE as well.
Mr. Rowley, you mentioned the number 30 to 50. Is that the target that you would need to satisfy a ninth grade
It's-
expansion in Kiplo, so 30 students?
It's about the benchmark we've looked at. When we originally planned this out and looking and everything that we anticipated or would have liked to have seen, we had space available for 50 per grade span at the high school. So as we unveiled a grade span each year, we thought that we could comfortably physically house 50 a grade span as we went through.
Okay, so I appreciate that, but I mean, I didn't answer or ask the question right. What's the threshold to get it to run? So you're 15 right now, give or take. I wouldn't hold you to that. It's about 15,
Yep.
right? Do you need 20, 25? Do you need 30 to get it to become this hybrid model?
We talked, I think we held a benchmark of about 20 to 25 would be really good if we could get to 50 when we talk about flexibly grouping students together and the ability to do some of the things that Ms. Garland had shared to them to collaborate together. It would be difficult to, when you start to layer in teachers and certifications with 15 kids, we went through everything. Is that 8 and 7 are all 15 in a STEM, and then all 15 go to their humanities block? And what are those teachers doing in the meantime when they don't have that? So we looked at if we had anywhere 20 to 25, we thought that we could engage in that particular type of learning with a large enough group for kids to be able to do some of that collaborative work together.
Yeah, so in my head, and I'm not challenging, I'm thinking, it sounds like, and I get that, right? Because you don't want too small classes, and you're right. What does this teacher do for half their day if they're just waiting for the students to show up? So I do get the logistics of that. But it sounds like you're looking. The problem is we need to find 10 more students, right? That's if we could find 10 to 15 more students, we could solve this problem, right? Where our families who have come and spoke would like to have their students go to 9th grade. So I just wonder, if we found those 10 to 15 students, would that be a better strategy, right? Like, could we just go find those 10 students? I think they exist. I just think we have to find them.
It's a great wondering and one that we've had as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I was thinking out loud. It was more of that. But...
I guess our struggle is too, how do you measure now there's these 15 students, well, 13, or how many are in 8th grade now that would be going? Was 10?
About 10 or 11.
11 enrolled and 10 plan to attend. Yeah. For 2 years.
Yeah. So the kids that are currently our 8th graders that plan on moving to this, how do we measure the change that's going to happen to them now that they've had this experience for a full year? Now they're going to be at high school. What's that transition plan look like for them? I think of their mental health. They've had these opportunities. Their personal learning, like how are we going to sustain that since we can't provide that for them here at Kipla? How are we going to provide that for them in high school? And the other question is too, thinking, so we have the 10 now, next year. So I know we're talking about 9th grade now because this is new to us, but we're actually talking about high school block. So like next year, is there a way to, we have 13 8th graders now that will hopefully go to 9th grade. Will those 10, is there a way to bring those 10 back? Is there a process of like, hey, I'm sorry we can't do it this year, but next year we'll have our 20 plus if both families, and so it's because it's 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th, it's a group, right? We're talking about a high school group.
Well, that would solve your FTE issue.
Right.
Because a teacher could teach a 9th grade block and a 10th grade block. Flip.
So that's not until the following year. So I don't know if that is something you can speak to, but also how do we help these families right now? Because these kids have experienced something completely different and they've settled in, and now we're gonna, I hate to say it, but rip them out of this. And so I worry about their mental health.
I think that is the work that will be done for the remaining portion of the semester as class schedules start to become a little bit more clear. The easiest way to address that with students specifically would be during a unified homeroom period together. That is something that is built into our high school schedule, so it is a guaranteed class period that they would have throughout the entire year with that same teacher overseeing it, and it is strictly focused on the social emotional well-being of our students. So that would be the most immediate impact that the kids would have with a teacher. The other 0.5 of what Ms. Garland does is the personalized learning coordinator, in teaming up with myself and Dr. Horn. It's looking at how do we start to bring some of those components to life in their academic settings at the high school. And then that other piece that we would always have to figure out is those students would still have been spending 2 periods a day at the high school to start out. So they're, regardless of 9th grade as a standalone at the academy or not, a portion of their day for the first few periods would be at the high school with electives, with the general population of freshman students that are going through typical electives. So it is something that it is on our radar and things that we are trying to problem solve. The first immediate one that we looked at was combining that homeroom period with our coordinator that can support our teachers that are known or that are aware of these philosophies and these. It goes into a lot of the work that we've been doing with feedback cycles, and we have a set of tenets of personalized learning that we go through, and all of our staff members in the district are responsible for. So seeing those things happening already, and then building those skill sets with all parties to make sure that they have a good amount of that type of learning philosophy in the classrooms that they're having at the high school.
So do you think that next year, not this coming year, the next year, we would have a 9th and 10th grade, like what that looks like?
That
So
would
some
be
of
our
these
hope.
parents-
I went back to this slide to look at, if you look at our current 7th graders who will be 8th grade next year is looking at 10. So assuming if all of them were interested to have over 20 there, we do also have a very large cohort of 6th grade students. By the time they get to the high school, we would be looking at roughly 50 or so students. And as I think proof of concept, for lack of better terms, and word spreads on what's happening, I would foresee that number increasing from year to year. In full transparency, what then comes with that is course requirements, certifications, staffing, pieces like that will be the next set of issues that we try to problem solve as we look at a 9-10 group that's coming over, to make sure they still have the proper electives, that they still have the proper content areas and certified teachers to teach those content areas. But that wave of 7th graders after next year coming in, we would have that larger group to really start to put numbers in place and what those classes look like.
That's actually part of my concern. And again, I'm thinking out loud. It's not to be critical, but it's almost like we're telling the current 8th graders, sorry kid, you were born a year too early.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they were born a year later, they probably would make it into Kipla as a 9th grader, right? So, and especially because you got this bubble coming up, that 6th grade bubble.
Well, I'm concerned. So my concern is with the 6th grade bubble. How many of these kids are going to say, well, high school's no longer an option. We're not going to go this route. So I guess I'm just wondering, to what extent do we show our support for the program and for the program and commit to, hey, and I know it's for reasons you've explained tonight, it's difficult. We don't have just a magic wand saying, okay, you guys, we're forcing you to go to Kipla. We need X amount of students. But we see potential. I mean, we see that from transitioning from, to me, that this data says transitioning from elementary to middle school, we're seeing a lot of interest. And, I can't explain 7th or 8th grade, but if we could keep that interest and grow it through, based on what you're telling us tonight, it's possible to see it thrive at the next level. It's just, how do we keep those current 6th grade students engaged and, wanting it? I know it's an open-ended, there's no answer. It's just,
I mean, to me, I would almost say it's worth having a weird year, right? It's worth having a year where we just dump a little bit of dollars in there. It's not great. We've got teachers not necessarily assigned, but it's worth that year to smooth through, because we know this is experimental. We're treating this like this is like an educational laboratory, right? And we're trying something that's brand new, and we're gonna have to be okay with those weird years. In my head, I think. I also, along with President Gonzalez's comment, my concern would be the reverse happens, it's so wonky and we don't have good smoothed out kind of systems at the end, people start saying, well, you know, I'm not sure I can trust this thing, right? Maybe it won't even be here.
Yeah.
So then we'll lose interest at the other end too, right? So we're kind of cutting ourselves off at the knees before we even get going. So that's just my 2 cents.
Becomes self-defeating.
Exactly.
I mean, what's the point of enrolling if you don't know if it's going to be there or not? It suppresses people from considering it.
I mean, full transparency, this is something that my family's even thinking about, right? But I have this question in the back of my head, right? Like, I sat on the school board, right? So like, you know, yeah.
I think our fear with an unknown ninth grade, and our teachers and students persevered through that and did a wonderful job. I think our fear with how high stakes high school then becomes is if we did not have that solid ability to say this is what it will be for that floundering, then for ninth grade, when we start to talk about if it's not guaranteed in 100% with the staffing, because we would likely need to go outside of current Canelan staff to hire those, and then there's onboarding to this philosophy of there is a concern then when we start looking at GPAs and transcripts and credits earned, if we're not able to provide that same quality of education, if that same excitement would then start to fade after that freshman year.
But I challenge that because you guys wouldn't have done this if you guys hadn't done the education already. You've been doing this for what, 8 years now? You've been looking at this. So you've seen other schools, go towards high school. I'm sure they've had this wonkiness. I don't know if any school ever just went out and said, hey, we're all doing elementary, middle, and high school at once. Or is there anybody else that's like us that has done the elementary and middle school and then tiptoed into high school? What does that look like? We wouldn't have done this if we didn't see the potential or see the need and that it was going to work. So like you're saying that we would have to hire others. We knew that. We're not going to fail our students. You've worked too hard. You spent the last 8 years of your lives. I know Miss Garland has. And there's other people that have spent the last 8 years of their lives educating themselves and going through training and seeing what other schools have done to make sure we don't fail our students. Otherwise, we wouldn't have launched this. So I guess, what are other schools, what are they doing? Have they gone through this problem before? What have you seen? Then how did they handle it? Did they push through, kind of like Dr. Lawler saying, push through that wonky 1 year? Or did they hold back and then kind of like what we're thinking? What is your experience of what you've seen in other schools?
There are several schools that there's no other school that has this type in our immediate area. And when we go and look at schools, high schools in particular that have full-fledged high schools, we have gone out of state and looked mostly into Wisconsin, and they have a full-fledged high school staff for all electives, all core content housed in a physical building. And the one we mainly have networked with, they have 3 of those. And then they have a central traditional high school, but it's all physically located together. So if there is a one-off class that those students need, in the surrounding area of what we've seen is a couple different things. We've had teachers, or we've seen teachers that are interested in this type of learning. So it then becomes something that they're doing almost like an action research project within their own class to be doing some of this philosophical type teaching. Or we see some high schools where this structure, they may have a physical space in their high school. So they're saying, okay, these 5 or 6 classrooms in this structure, our current structure, are being set aside for essentially an academy within an academy.
Do we have a possibility to do that in our high school?
We could. It would greatly disrupt. We already have teachers that are on carts that go classroom to classroom. We have very minimal space, and Dr. Horn could speak to that, of most likely no, without a disruption to several other sections in courses. We drastically lack space at our high school.
So I'm the optimistic, and I just want to, so I hate to say this too, in the sense of, because I know our parents don't feel this way, but not treat them like our guinea pigs, but they kind of jumped in with us on this, and they knew that they were taking a risk with us. Is it a bad thing that they take that risk with us for high school too? And as you guys are learning, like you just said, there's a lot of learning for us to still, for us, sorry, like I'm there every day with you guys, but in spirit. So to kind of weed out all those things that you might find with high school, and so then that way you can grow it year after year. So isn't it maybe better to have a smaller class to kind of navigate those pitfalls and those challenges and learn from them? And that way, when we bring in the next groups, we're stronger. The staff is stronger. They know what to expect. We're thankful to the parents that have joined us on this journey.
Mr. Riley, can you talk about the Ignite Academy, the expansion, the financial impact at one of the future slides? That will, I think, allow more questions to be asked that were outside of the Capitol that could share exactly what it would look like moving forward. So the board can see other financial implications and ask other questions as well.
So looking at what that implication would be for a 9th grade rollout, looking at anywhere between 2 to 3 certified staff. That number is based on certifications and teachers of records. That number is likely 3 to find the math and science dual certified teacher. We've run into a lot of issues in looking at current staff certifications, going back and looking at past candidates. So we would likely be looking at someone that is certified in math and science. The English and social studies certification tends to be one that several staff members do hold. So anywhere using a placeholder of roughly $60,000, we feel that we could deliver that STEM and humanities content with 2 to 3 certified staff. The next piece would be looking at our support staff, our monitors. Students would be eating lunch there. There'd be increased need for supervision with that lunch period. So that truly would depend on enrollment increases. When we look at a couple things could happen. When we look at the 3rd through 8th graders for next year, if we do see a significant number there, we would likely need to hire more monitors and more support staff. If there are students that do require paraprofessionals, that would be an increased expense there as well. When we planned through this, we talked about students having access to our counselors and to the dean if necessary, but we do not have a standalone counselor or dean currently at the academy, and that's not included in these projections. We would need to increase our curricular license for what we are not currently under review for. And what I mean by that, when we come to a curricular review cycle each year, we can support financially a 7th site license through our curriculum review cycle budget that year. So an example would be we are reviewing social studies this year. We will build into our budget a 7th site license. We would need to add those for English, social studies, science, and our curricular vendors that we have. So that is an estimate of anywhere between 10 to 15. A ballpark is usually about 4 to 5 per content area, depending on what we would need and what access students have. Looking at the furniture to outfit those personalized learning spaces, depending on what we have access to at Meredith, we were able to recycle a lot of furniture. We were able to outfit some of the existing furniture we have with our classrooms, but there was also an increased need when you talk about this type of learning, more modular furniture for kids to be able to collaborate and to take full advantage of what those structures look like in the classroom. So looking at those classrooms and those learning spaces, looking at that $60,000 to $100,000 range. And then because students would still start out at the high school, we would have to provide transportation to them. Homeroom at the high school's 3rd period. So our students would go through 1st and 2nd period, and then they would be transported over to the academy during that time.
So this comment I'm going to have now, based on this dollars, is really for us, I think, not necessarily for you guys. It sounds like a lot of money, right? It sounds like $300,000-$400,000, which is a lot. I'm not being flippant about that. But we spend $300,000 or $400,000 on all kinds of things, right? And I think this is a good investment with that money, right? Like, I think that money, it would be good for these students and good for us as a district, because who knows if we can get more involved in this program, and who knows how much we can grow this thing. Sure, it may cost us $400,000 to do that, but in the long run, that's dollars well spent, right? So that would be my comment to us, because here's this now involves you guys. Hypothetically, I hate doing this too because it's totally not fair. Don't do it anyways. Hypothetically, if we as a board directed you to open the 9th grade, how would you do that?
How would we open it? We would start to first and foremost make sure that we would have the teachers to be able to teach that.
Okay.
We put out an interest survey to our current staff members each year, and right now there's no one that has expressed interest to come from the high school to this setting. So again, likely we would need to look outside of Caneland. And that would be probably one of the first things would be, we would need to get that board approval to hire that additional staff, because it's not something that I believe we've shared or talked about. But finding the teachers that can do that and can do it effectively, that would probably be our first task. The delivery of content, we have those tables, we have those standards set. That would really be what we would be teaching. Then there would be, once the teachers are identified, there would be work that is required to build that philosophical capacity on. I know that the academy has really hit hard that continuum type teaching. So looking at, if I am that STEM teacher and I have a mixture of maybe algebra and geometry and algebra 2 kids, of what that would look like for them to be taught on that continuum, we would immediately need to start to get curricular license okayed, furniture ordered, and to outfit those spaces to make sure that we have places for them to work. And then there would likely need to really dig into some of the contract pieces when we talk about prep periods and things like that. Nothing that couldn't be tackled. It's similar language, I would imagine, and I'm speaking outside my area of expertise, to similar to some of the MOUs that we have had when we looked at middle school language. But I think the most immediate thing we would need to do is make sure that we have the people to teach these students when classes open in August.
And that would be part of the March, typically that would fall in the March staffing plan timeline of incorporation.
Okay.
Quickly. So,
And I don't want to speak for everybody. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I didn't want to speak for everybody. That was just my 2 cents.
my only question to that was, we're gonna do this at some point. If we do it this year, we do it next year. That's the intent, right? So are we postponing this by 1 year by spending this money and things like learning spaces and other stuff and license, other things are the one-time hits, obviously the salaries every year. But we're going to take this hit at some point, right? Is the point of this money is going to be spent for these kids, for this program. Okay.
I think another component to make sure the board thinks about is that 2 to 3 FTE is an aggregate. And so if you recall our minimum staffing plan every year with the high school, we may have an aggregate FTE for math, but it's comprised of point this and point that and point. So similarly, if you think of it this way, a 1 period class all year is 0.2 of an FTE. Okay. So in this instance, to have a double, I think you're looking at double blocks when you were talking about it. So double blocks for the STEM, that's 0.4. But then you're not going to have that same person be able to do the humanities block. There may be someone certified somewhere in the country, but they're kind of I've never seen it. So you'd end up with 2 people at 0.4. And so there's a pragmatic component too of being able to attract a part-time staff member who's not going to get benefits, because you need to be 0.8 or higher to get benefits, to then come in and do a component of an aggregate FTE. So yes, there's a total dollar amount component to it. And yes, there's that commitment the board can make, but then you start looking at these fractional teaching assignments, if you will, maybe is a better way to put it, that will become challenging in the current job market. So I just would want the board to know that when you get into it, there are some finite and very intricate pieces. And then so if you then partner that person with the high school, you lose a significant portion of the day to travel. So if you do 0.4, they've got to have a travel period to get back to the high school. So that's another 0.2. And then they've got to have their planning and their prep and their lunch. So essentially you'd be paying a full-time salary for 0.4, maybe depending on some scheduling, 0.5 or 0.6 of instructional load off of that, which if that's the board's choice, that's fine. But please know that there's some additional, as you play it out, components to the staffing allotment that make it very challenging. So there's those other pieces, and we don't have those finite answers, but know that those variables are out there. So if that's a commitment the board's looking at, know that there would be that limited ability to put that FTE, that certified staff member, in front of kids compared to the total allotment of FTE that we would need to provide to them.
Did you realize this when you were making this plan, that like, or is this something that's like, oh, an aha now that we're moving towards high school?
So what Dr. Akin explained, if we had larger class sizes, we wouldn't need for them to teach one and then another. We would be able to fill out their schedule with class sizes of 10 or 15, and those blocks would fill up a little bit more, so they would be instructing a little bit longer.
So it's the wonky year again. We're kind of talking about this one year is wonky. Is there any incentives that you can give a teacher? I know contracts wise, like I know we also have like a 1 year contract, or like you're here for 1 year, and could we guarantee them?
So all of those kinds of things are negotiated items with the with our KEA, and those are not things that have been on the table in the past. We do have a working and operating MOU for KIPLA in terms of the working conditions, but please know emphatically that the wages and labor components of our teachers' work is something that is only subject to the bargaining process, and that would involve a lot of conversation with our association. They've been very helpful and receptive and have worked very, very well and cohesively with us as we've opened the 3A piece, and I wouldn't imagine that being any different, but just know that there are lots of steps to that and a lot of collaboration that has to occur for that to take place.
To your point, so the additional staffing, the additional positions would be STEM and humanities. We're okay with the special ed staffing for ninth grade.
Those are some of the other components of that aggregate 2.0 and 3.0 FTE. And so there's a component there. The other thing that I would say is, just like we had the fluctuation from 103 to 98 today, please know as Mrs. Garland told you earlier, within that 98 to 103, we had a larger range of kids coming in and out, different names, but the total number of enrollment stayed relatively static, but there was a lot of dynamic movement within that. So to the special ed piece, we wouldn't know until we had a hard count. So the 10 students that we have today, there might be one or two that choose to, for whatever reasons, to not continue on. If the board offered it, but then you might have 3 others that come in, all whom have IEPs, and that would change our staffing allotment, just like it with the social work component. Please know, in the 9 years that I've been here, whenever we have the need, we bring it to the board, and the board always approves it. So we will if that were to be looked at in any circumstance, whether it be a specific grade level at an elementary or KIPLA, we would continue to update the board about where we're at. And please keep in mind too, with that division of the humanities, I know there was some conversation about keeping the kids together to create a class size of 10. You may or may not be able to do that. And so now are you also splitting 5 kids go to a humanities block and 5 to a STEM, and then they switch, or do you keep them together? And if you do that, then that 0.4 becomes a 0.2 for KIPLA and those kinds of things. And so there's just a lot of variables to that the board would need to consider in terms of competing interests and finite resources.
But the approach of education at KIPLA, as far as special ed students go, is inclusion. It's strictly inclusion. There's no resource.
It's whatever is indicated on the student's IEP. So our current experience is the majority of our students need their service in co-taught general education classrooms. But if it's indicated on an IEP that they need to be for the credit, then we provide that.
was gonna say, just so you guys know, kind of to Dr. Lawler's point too, of we're attracting people to, that's one of our goals too. We're trying to elevate our schools. We're trying to elevate the education the kids are getting and the experience and stuff like that. And I have been to both open houses. I've met parents, I've talked to parents, and there have been parents from other districts that are asking about us. There are parents that are wanting to move here because they want to be here. And so we have a parent mentioned that today, so as a board, we've made that commitment of elevating our school district so other people want to move here. There are people moving here because of that. And I have, like I said, I've been to both of the open houses, purposely talked to parents that have attended and asked why they were interested. I've talked to a lot of the parents that are here tonight too. So I just felt like you guys should know that part, because you don't have that benefit of hearing that end of it.
So, you all know we have a big agenda tonight, and not that this isn't important, but if maybe we could come to a conclusion in terms of this portion of the meeting. If anyone has final comments, final thoughts, any suggestions moving forward.
Just like to say thank you to all the parents and the students and everyone who have come out. They've substantially changed my opinion, and voicing impacts all of us and me. So thank you very much for showing enthusiasm.
And to kind of add on that, I know we don't do public comments. I'll to you guys. The emails have really helped us, because we weren't the board that started this. Again, it's been an 8-year process, right? 8 years. And so none of us have been here. Well, one was. So, it's been very enlightening for us to read emails, to understand, and to walk in the shoe, to tiptoe in the shoes that you guys are actually walking every day, and to see from your kids. So yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you. So there's no action needed for this item. So at this point, we'll move on to J5, which
Is there?
oh yeah, thank you to the presenters.
Yeah, is there?
Forgive me.
I'm just going to share that with the decision to not expand it, it sounds like there's board feedback here, not necessarily contrary to that, but is there more information that the board needs us to bring back for action at the next meeting? What do you need for consideration as we're hearing the dialogue?
As best we know, what would the cost be for 9th grade to expand? What would it be?
And I think
give me a range.
I think
high end, low end.
To Dr. Lawler's point, I think we need to either commit or not do it.
So
we need to say, okay, we tried this, it didn't happen. Is that at the point where we say, okay, we're going to spend this money and take that leap? Because I don't want to lose interest, and I personally feel like what they're doing at Ignite is valuable. We've seen the passion from the parents, so we need to make a firm commitment that, hey, regardless of what's going to happen, we're going to spend this money after we've seen this amount, or we don't. But what happened was very unfortunate, and I feel for those parents, and I don't want to see that again. Also, I don't want to lose future interest, like we were mentioning, those 35 sixth graders. We want them, they're involved. We want them to have that commitment from us as a district. So my 2 cents, that's my feedback.
So I don't know, I never like talking like this, but if we wanted to change direction or direct you all to change direction, is that on the table? Hey, I don't know if it is, because we'd have to get a majority of people on board, and I don't want to speak for folks. If it is on the table, B, what's the process to do that?
Mr. Riley, could you tell us what if the board directed the administration to make that happen, or to consider that, what information would need to be brought back, or what would the next steps be different than what was outlined here in the presentation?
I believe we would need to spend some time with the Human Resources Department to talk about what that staffing looks like. I would want to act on it as soon as possible to get the best candidates for that position, but that may fall outside of our typical staffing timeline, and I imagine it can come in 2 different waves. I don't know if we've done that in the past. Again, that's speaking outside of my lane, but we have a ballpark of what that range would be, and it's probably about $300,000 to $400,000 to get that up and running. Some of those would be probably about 25% of that would be one-time costs. The other is looking at staff and ongoing curricular licenses and pieces like that. But the next steps, if directed that way, would be to figure out how we can post these, any impact that it would have on our current contract with KEA, and then really move forward. My biggest fear would be committing to spending that money and recommitting and not having the people to be able to do that. So I would want to secure the staff to be able to instruct those students. That is from a curricular standpoint, but I think it would be a much larger operations, human resources, curricular conversation to have.
Dr. Atkins, can you talk about the HR side of that?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we'd want to do is look at the immediate, right? This coming year, and what do we do for those ninth grade students? But then we have to look at like that continuum of service, right? Or continuation of service. So please know that if we brought a number back to you for ninth grade, we'd have to add to that then in 10th grade, and then again in 11th, and then again in 12th. And you would have to look at that significant capital outlay and commit to that significant capital outlay. Otherwise, the board could potentially be looking at this same conversation 4 years in a row. Not that that's a bad conversation to have, not that it's warranted, but know that there is that component to it. And then from there, do we have the students to run? And again, I want to step away from KIPLA and maybe talk about some other similar examples where the district chooses to run programs or not. AP Calc. Sometimes we have enough, we usually have at least one section. Sometimes we have enough for two, sometimes we don't. And so we run those programs, or we don't run that additional class accordingly. But different than a program like this, we're able to have that AP Calc certified teacher teach that second class. We don't necessarily need to go find a second staff member to teach that second class. French 3-4 has been a good example over the years. Sometimes we run it, sometimes we don't. We've had to have that difficult conversation about that as a course offering, etc. Kindergarten. Do we have, how many kindergartens do we have? Do we include half-day kindergartners into the full-day sections? We've done that as a standard practice as needed over the years, and sometimes we don't. And those aren't necessarily things that we bring to the board to make decisions on. We have to make those administratively and look at how that plays out. But just know that there are the devil's in the details, and there's a lot to that. And I would counsel the board to not necessarily consider it as a one-time this year expenditure, because if we do this year, we're really, in some respects, looking 4 years out at establishing a high school. And is the board in a position, would we be in a position as a district to talk about committing to a high school with the enrollment that we have today? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm not at all saying that those 10 students don't deserve that opportunity, yet we have competing resources or competing demands on minimal resources. And so there's a holistic component that that the board would want to consider for this too. So I believe the words were used like, do we want to commit to this? And I think that's the perfect word. If you're going to continue to ponder whether this is feasible, we can do some of that work and bring some of that information back to you, but know that the commitment of it may be more than just this group of 10 kids this coming year. It might be much more kids over time too. And so we'd want to have that conversation with you so that you have a full landscape of what to decide upon.
And that's our whole goal.
Yeah.
Is even more and more kids. So we're going to invest in them anyways. And I know this is not I don't know how we could possibly do this, but to us right now, it's about the kids. It's about those 10 kids, 11 kids, whatever it is, their commitments, their parents' commitments, that's what we're focused on right now, is providing what is best for them. And so I don't know how we get, it's not like they can sign in blood that they're committing to this, but obviously we would not want to say yes to this and then we go down to 5 kids, so I think we need to have some parameters of that too, of what does that look like, and I don't know how that even works.
I would say, I want to clarify, I'm sensitive to what you said, Dr. Atkins, and to all of you, and Dr. Atkins specifically, right? When I said, would the board direct us, I mean, I understand how that language comes across, and I understand that, it's easier said than done. I do understand those things, right? On the other side of that, though, I'm going to hammer this point one more time. I think there's a level of commitment and focus and vision and energy into this that matters and that's worth having this discussion.
And sorry to add to that, I just love the idea too. There's so much learning that has already happened that is now going to the other schools. Like we're doing personalized learning already at the other schools, but there's data, there's things that are going on in these classrooms that now can translate, and that's being brought to the other schools. And so I think just even that's not even, I don't know how you could quantify that at this point of the lessons that are being learned here education wise. And we're able to translate that. And again, the goal of our board is to elevate our school district to where people want to move here, that they choose Canelan. And this is a great momentum forward, not just for Kibla, but for all of our schools and
So-
possibly our high school, so.
So then what are you asking of us at this time, Deb? Do we bring it back to because it sounds like time is of the essence and it sounds like this is on the table. I don't know. It sounds like the discussion's being had. At this point, do we, next meeting,
Yep,
I
that would need to be the timing.
Yeah.
If indeed there's the majority of the board that would want to direct us to bring back that information, that would need to be at the next meeting sooner rather than later, laying out the implications as fully vetted out.
okay, so you need a straw poll then to see?
Yeah, because right now, the recommendation is to not have it based on the finances, and if the board is going to shift that, we would need a majority of the board to tell us to bring that back for consideration.
So I'm gonna give the caveat that I will support having the discussion. I have grave concerns with us throwing a bunch of money at something and at the last minute putting a rush job together. So I am supporting having the discussion, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm on board with this fast action plan.
And then that wouldn't be the first time that we've done that. If we brought just a topic discussion that the board has held or tabled and wanted more information. So this would be the board directing us to bring back more information at the next meeting to have to probably take action at that one to move forward based on what is shared and what is learned February 12th. Chris?
Can I just clarify the board's, what we're talking about is a staffing proposal for ninth grade expansion at Kipla and what it could look like beyond as well, as I mentioned, outside of the minimum staffing timeline at the next board meeting.
And I don't know how you can put this together either, but what is that transition going to look like for our kids if we don't do this? What is it? What does that impact? What are the steps that are going to have to be taken? What is there going to be financial cost to that? Are we adding on? And just.
I believe the conversation about that component has begun because of where the district is at currently. So that may be lesser, but if you would like that, we will bring it.
I just want to, we're worried about numbers. We have to focus on numbers. That's obviously our biggest job. But we also, the mental health of those kids. And that's like we talk about all the time. Transition for our kids to make sure everything is smooth, that it is what's best for them, not necessarily what we think is best. So I want to make sure that we understand through your eyes what that looks like, through the teacher's eyes and the students and the parents, what that looks like. How you present that, but
And I guess that question to Dr. Adkins then, based on the staffing plan typically being in March is what we followed because that's allowed us the opportunity for middle high school registration to be able to look at the sections and provide that. Could this be done at the March staff meeting following that? Or does this need to go outside of it based on student, and maybe Mrs. Garland has some of that too, or Mr. Raleigh, going outside of that typical staffing plan, student registration piece, could that still happen at March, or should that be sooner to incorporate looking for the staffing that you'd mentioned too? Because it seems like the staffing is extraordinary and above and beyond as well.
So, off the cuff and on the spot, what I would say is that we want to do something to get a hard count. Okay, please know it's very challenging to base staffing allotments off of interest surveys or registration packets at the elementary school, those kinds of things. We always talk about hard counts with our administration, and we use that to present then that minimum staffing plan. So if we already have a due date of April 4th out there, then I wouldn't necessarily see harm in presenting maybe an update in the interim, but then a staffing plan for Kipla at the April board meeting, either the first or second board meeting in April, because we'll have those numbers by then of kids who want to register. But that's predicated on we're doing it. There's a chicken and egg component here, so I'm grappling with that. Please know that. As far as the staff goes, some of the typical things that we would be doing concurrent with the staffing plan in terms of placements and such, I don't know would be as significant as an issue. It is an open enrollment school for students. It's also an open, it's also a non-compulsory assignment school for our staff. And so, as Mrs. Garland said, we don't currently have any staff members, I believe, who showed preference for KIPLA on the preference survey. So we would most likely be looking at new hires for the district. So that's a little bit less of a constraint there in terms of the timing in which we tell our staff what their tentative assignment would be for next year. I'm just totally talking out loud here, so forgive me. But I could see us doing it kind of either bringing you a full thing that you vote on now ahead of time, or if you're going to wait until March, I might even recommend waiting until then April so that we have a hard count. But how do you ask parents to provide that commitment to you without the board providing the commitment to the parents? And so that's the chicken and egg piece. And I would just, that's a challenge because as you mentioned, there will be dollars attached to that. And there is that difficult conversation about how we use those dollars.
Is that maybe a conversation for you guys, administration, like maybe process that?
I'm-
We give you a lot to throw a lot at you.
I'm
You're not
envisioning a
exhausted.
proposal. Sorry. Are we okay? I'm envisioning a proposal of what it would look like as soon as possible, because then that maybe can help us with the chicken and egg part.
Okay.
I would say
Dr. Layden, I would defer to Dr. Layden too about how that would what that preference would look like, but maybe some sort of plan that then helps you with the chicken and egg piece.
I was just gonna say, sorry to interrupt, but kudos to all of you because I threw a curveball at each one of you tonight, and you fielded it very well. So thank you for that. I apologize for throwing the curveball. I appreciate you guys as professionals and being able to handle it. So.
Okay, so then we have a consensus. Do we need to actually do the thumbs up? We're gonna have a discussion. All right. So then,
Thank you.
Plan at the next board meeting.
Bring it after it's well thought out. We'll have to determine which one it is based on
Sounds
the timing.
great. Thank you,
So
Dr.
we have the
Layden.
direction.
yeah,
We don't have.
let's
the
do it right. I mean, let's not just
100%. Thank
It's a
you.
lot of money.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now, if it's okay, we'll go ahead and move on to J5, which is the approval of summer school fees for summer of 2024. Dr. Layden.
Yep, I'll turn this one over right away to Dr. Mum and Mr. Rowley, knowing that time is getting away from us tonight as well. So with that, tell us about summer school.
Yep, we are excited to have our 2 summer school principals here. We recently just hired them. We always try to hire in the fall so that then they are part of the PR and planning. So in a minute, Mr. Rowley will introduce our principals. We did want to highlight one major change from the Ed Service Department in meeting with our 2 principals and really reflecting at the ability for students to have credit that go into high school, as well as looking at trying to minimize the summer regression. We have changed summer school, which was notoriously in June in Caneland, to July. So we want to make it super clear to all of our families out there that although summer school registration isn't out yet, it will be within the 4 weeks of July, right after the 4th of July holiday. And then you'll hear other little tweaks that we have been doing and working with. Last year, we did implement a college intern structure so that we could reduce class size and group size, and had a lot of success with that. So we're excited to look at some of those changes that we made last year and continuing them this year. But a key point is it is July and not June this year.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about summer school. We have Brock Feast and Kara Salto here with us today. They're going to take you through all of the details. Sarah and I are here serving as backup. I know sometimes there are historical questions asked about programming, so we're happy to jump in, but also in growing our own. I know these 2 are very well versed in our summer programming, and we're excited to have them present for you guys.
One question from the outset. This is separate from ESY.
Correct.
ESY, okay.
Yep.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just,
But we are partnering with them
right,
to
okay.
offer some.
To offer some, okay.
Just want to make sure you know.
No, I know. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with introductions. Oh, thank you. Hi, Kara Salto. I'm the elementary summer school principal. This will be my third year in this role.
I'm Brock Beast. I'll be the 612 summer school principal, and this is my first summer doing this role.
I want to start with celebrations. There are so many to share, but I just picked some of the most notable ones as far as parts that had been as part of the expansion last year. Prior to last year, summer school typically ran out of 4 buildings, the high school, the middle school, and 2 of the elementary buildings. This year, we were able to increase the collaboration of staff and students by adding transportation and reduce building usage from 4 buildings down to 2 buildings. Another celebration from last year, as Dr. Mum just shared, is we added our College of Education interns. They were able to get further clinical experience as well as those co-teaching opportunities with our certified staff members. We continued to offer various engagement camp opportunities at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. We also added a day camp experience, think more traditional summer camp, and that allowed for students to have a full day experience of interdisciplinary courses, engagement camps, and day camp if they would have liked. High school courses continued to see an increase in enrollment for those 4 credit courses so that students could take them during the summer and free up their schedule during the school year. And as in previous years, our Jumpstart to Middle School program was our highest attended session of the summer. With that, although those were expansions for last year, we'd like to continue to grow on a lot of those and always continue to grow our program. Last year, there was transportation from school sites offered in Elburn and Sugar Grove and Maple Park. Unfortunately for our families at McDowell, there was not really any transportation available to them outside of driving to those school sites. So we would like to add a transportation pickup and drop-off system for those families. With the success of the Jumpstart to Middle School program, we are proposing a new step up to kindergarten program. This would be for incoming kindergarten students to get a jump start. While they might not necessarily be at their home school site because elementary summer school will just take place in one building, they'll have an opportunity to learn some of those procedures and routines and what does it look like when I go to recess? What does it look like when I go to library? And get a bit of a head start before the school year starts. We want to continue to offer our College of Education interns and our teachers those co-teaching opportunities, as well as making connections with those future teachers and hopefully build networking opportunities and attract them to Keeneland once they graduate. With our day camp, we hope to create partnerships with our community resources. So maybe the police department or the library or Fox Valley Career Center. There's opportunities for them to come in and support our students for those more authentic experiences during the day camp portion of their day. Last year, our middle school enrollment was very low. So we had to be creative in offering those opportunities for those students who were interested. This year, we are hiring a middle school summer school teacher earlier so that they can get students on board and really share what the opportunities they have in the summer. And the last thing is, as they already mentioned, a shift from June to July. As far as the elementary summer school structure, it will look similar to last year. The biggest thing to note is in past years, students have signed up for the grade that they have just completed. This year, because summer school is taking place in July, students will sign up for the grade that they are going into. So our current 5th grade students will sign up for 6th grade. So their summer school will be at the middle school. We'll continue to have interdisciplinary sessions based on those reported standards. We'll continue to offer those engagement camp sessions and those high interest topics, as well as that thematic day camp. For students who are signed up in those interdisciplinary courses and are staying for later portions of the day, including the engagement camps or the day camp, there'll be a lunch and recess time provided with our elementary College of Education interns, as well as with our KEA staff members. Students can sign up for any portion of the day, or as last year, they could have that full day experience if they'd like.
For our 6th through 8th grade is one of the areas that you'll probably see the most difference from what we offered last year to this year, and that's mostly because what we were doing hasn't necessarily been working because we've often not been getting enough students to sign up in order to even run most of the sections. So our hope is by changing a couple of things, we'll be able to engage our middle schoolers more over the summer and get them involved in some of these programs when they really need it. So we will kind of be modeling it more like an academic block rather than the full day camp experience, because there's not a lot of interest in that for middle school students. So they will have a 2.5 hour academic block, and that will be interdisciplinary. Our plan is to hire one teacher with a ELA social studies background and one teacher with a math and science background to help kind of look at what that will look like. And then also provide for flexible groupings based on what students actually need. Since the middle school credits are not, well, I shouldn't have used that word, because the middle school program is not for credits, there's not necessarily a set number of things we have to do, but it will be personalized for the students based on the feedback they got at the end of the year. What does this student most need? And the teachers who run the 6-8 structure will have the ability to work with the previous year's teachers to make that happen. We will also be offering engagement camps in the mornings, which are kind of like an elective experience on a topic outside of a traditional classroom experience on stuff that is of interest to students. We've had teachers already propose stuff about cooking through history and connecting it to social studies content, book circles, weightlifting, games, a whole host of things that I think are going to draw up a lot more interest for our 6th through 8th students. We are also adding the intern component to the 6-8 structure. So we will have, depending on enrollment, at least one intern with the teachers. The high school structure is pretty much the same as it has run in the past. All 6-12 summer school will happen here at Harder this summer. So one location centrally located. And we're offering courses for credit for students to earn. We have a certain number of classes that have gone through that process of how do we, with fidelity, offer a 1-semester class into a 16-day summer school session. So that is communication studies, government, personal finance, and then the credit recovery program, which is an online platform that allows students to earn a credit for a class they have failed during the year. The other 4 credit courses are for students who are trying to get ahead of where they're at and maybe fit some more electives in during the year. They do require a certified teacher because it's accredited and affects their GPA, and they get the actual credit for the course.
These include both half credit and full credit.
Because the equivalent of seat time in the 16-day summer session is the equivalent of 1 semester, we only offer a half credit courses. It would not be really possible to offer a full year's worth of material in the 4-week summer session based on the amount of time that they're there compared to the amount of time that they're there during the school year.
Okay. Do you have a head count for middle school, high school, ESY? Not, which is Keeneland ESY as opposed to like Mid Valley ESY.
I would defer to.
Yeah, I'm in the process of our case managers are in the process of contacting parents. Parents then have to register.
Sure.
And I won't have not until April. But
Okay.
I am going to be partnering with
Okay.
them.
In April's the same time registration would be due for everyone else.
Okay.
Trying to align it with what they need as well, so.
Okay.
Can you explain why the shift from June to July?
I think there's a couple things at play here. I think it gives us a little bit more of a time. As I've talked to teachers, especially on the credit recovery thing, there's always like this little bit of a frenzy right at the end of the year, right? Did a kid earn a credit or not earn a credit? And then right away, a week later, we have to get that kid signed up for summer school. This gives us a month to kind of sort some of that out. I do know from a student and teacher perspective, as I've been hiring potential teachers are more willing to teach summer school if they have maybe a little bit of a break first. And I think then one of the main reasons is if they take the break, then come to summer school, and then right into school year, we'll be able to maximize kind of that learning momentum and prepare them for the next school year. I don't know if there's anything else you guys would want to say to that.
Eighth grade will roll over and be a ninth grader as of July 1st. So eighth graders going into the high school could look at the possibility of accessing a credit early and hopefully reduce any summer reading regression at the elementary.
I guess I was thinking more parents take vacations during July.
Yeah,
So
it's
with that
definitely a
momentum.
concern. We have tried very hard to push this at the high school level. We have been pushing this information out in parent newsletters. We had information available to all high school students as they registered for courses, because a lot of them will then, as they kind of map out their 4-year plan, they'll put planning on taking a summer school semester somewhere along the way. So to make sure that if they were planning on that, as early as October, November, we started publicizing that this change was going to take
No,
place.
that's good. The logistical part, I completely understood.
Mhm.
I'm thinking parents that have
Okay.
already, planned July summer vacations and stuff like that, if this was gonna throw them off. But if you've already had kind of that conversation.
Yeah, there was an early tentative save the date with publicizing July that went out about sometime October or November.
Thank you.
Basically, as soon as high school students started at least thinking about course selection, we made sure they knew about the change.
Thank
Yeah, most of this is what you have seen as this stuff has come to you in the fall. You got the feedback and kind of the financials from the previous year, and then our timeline of starting to plan as early as September and October. We have begun some initial hiring. Tonight we're bringing to you the fees, and then the next steps of this process really are pushing out the save the dates, the enrollment, and then hiring more teachers. A lot of this hiring is obviously based on student enrollment. So until registration happens, there's some of those numbers that we won't know.
So as we did already talk about this expansion, I want to provide a little bit more of a rationale for the proposed changes. Last year, we saw a big increase in tuition waivers. From 2022, there was about $1,600 in tuition waivers to last year over $10,000, which did lead to higher costs to run the program. So if you look at the next slide, we'll be talking a little bit more about the costs and the proposed fees. Also, we're looking to provide that Step Up to Kindergarten program, just like we have our Jump Start to Middle School program. As you can see, our Jump Start to Middle School program is our highest attended program, and it would be great to give our incoming kindergarten students a similar opportunity. If you look at our course book from last year, you'll see various fees for 2-week classes and 4-week classes. We are proposing to create the similar fees for all of our 2-week courses and similar fees for all of our 4-week courses. We also are continuing to keep our overall cost to families reasonable. That's really important to us, as well as comparative or even less than other camps and courses in the community and surrounding summer school district costs.
So the recommendation on costs, and one of the biggest changes here as we went through the course book is if we had looked at last year's as a model, there would have been way more bullet points here. The cost was not necessarily consistent from course to course. So parents might have been signing up for 2 courses that seemed like a similar amount of time, but sometimes had different costs. And so we wanted to streamline that and have it make more sense for families. So the core academic sessions would be $200 a student for the 4-week session. The day camp fees would be based on they can register for 2 or 4 weeks of the day camp. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. It would be changing a $50 for the 2-week session, engagement camps, $100 for the 2-week session, bridge courses, which 2 of those that are intent to run is a bridge to Algebra 1 and a bridge to English 9 for 8th grade students that are identified as maybe needing some additional supports before they feel ready to take those high school programs. As well as then making sure the step up to kindergarten and jumpstart kind of being a step up to middle school, $75, which I believe is not a change. That is the same as last year. Oh, sorry. The additional transportation cost estimate of adding the McDowell stop comes to approximately about $5,000. But if you wanted some more info on the transportation, I would probably have to defer that.
Any questions? What do you have for us?
Appreciate all the hard work. I'm excited to see the enrollment numbers for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was the fee increases run by the FCAC? It was not yet. Okay.
Lack of questions, comments is usually a good thing. So don't
great.
All right. The Board of Education. Yeah, we have action on this. So at this time, I'll now entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2024 summer school fees as presented.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I said that. Go ahead. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about what I was going to say next. Motion carries 6-0. The summer school fees are approved. Sorry, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. The 6th item for new business is the approval of the IGA with Elburn for the waste treatment. Dr. Fuchs.
Nope. I'm gonna defer to Mrs. Soderstrom.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Yes,
all right.
Mrs. Morgan.
Thank you.
Passing it down.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm here tonight to talk to the board about a proposed IGA intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Elburn regarding the lift station and the force main that's located on the Canelan High School campus. So back in 1996, the Village of Elburn and the school district entered into an IGA to oversee the repair and maintenance of both the lift station and the force main. Those items were installed on the KHS campus to serve only the KHS campus. And so since that time, the Village of Elburn has assumed all of the financial responsibility for both the maintenance and repair of those items. There's been ongoing discussions with the village about how the district can share costs with them for both repair and maintenance of those 2 items. And so this has been ongoing for quite some time. I think going back to about 2020. And so many different possibilities were discussed over the last few years. Different cost sharing amounts, giving it over directly to the school district. And so what we're proposing now is an IGA that would amend the current agreement and put in place a cost sharing agreement between the village and the district. And it will be based on a ratio of students who reside in Elburn to the total number of students on the high school campus. I do apologize, in your board memo, I did list the percentage of Elburn residents who attend at the high school campus, but it was over the total district enrollment, not just the enrollment at the high school campus. So the way the IGA would be billed would be the ratio of students who reside in Elburn over the total number of students who attend on the high school campus. So
if we look at that number, for instance, this year, as of the December enrollment counts, there were 508 students who reside in Elburn, who attend on the high school campus, and there's a total number of 1,324 students on the campus, so that gives us 38.36 percentage of Elburn residents on the high school campus. So that would mean, according to this IGA, that the village of Elburn would assume about 40% of the costs of repair and maintenance for the lift station and force main this year, and then the district would have 60%. Over the last 5 years, since between 2017 and 2003, the average cost was for repair and maintenance was $16,277. So under this proposed model, the village would pay for about 40% of that, and the district would pay for about 60%. So this is a way that was proposed to share some of the costs between our two entities.
Any major expected maintenance upcoming within the next 12 months, 24 months? Or are we just talking regular maintenance?
It's regular maintenance, ongoing. The biggest cost is usually either rebuilding the pumps or replacing the pumps. So whatever you can do to convince the population at that campus to not put anything down there that shouldn't go down the toilets would be greatly appreciated.
And you're welcome to join me up here if you'd
I was
like.
gonna say, can you,
John.
I was gonna say, introduce yourself, please?
Come on up so you can
I
introduce
can
yourself.
repeat all of that if you like.
No.
So to answer your question, no, there isn't anything planned. The biggest expense is obviously the pumps. The pumps can run between $15,000 to refurbish one of them. There's two. Replacements run 25 up. Also depending on the lead time, it's always a little interesting. So no, as far as maintenance, there's ongoing maintenance. We're out here a couple of times a week looking at the pumps run time, what's going on. And obviously your usage goes up and down with your population, so it's less during the summer. Also, it's when it rains, it seems to go up, so there's some sort of infiltration someplace. Don't know where. That's just to figure out.
And that's Mark Payton works directly with the village on the repairs, the maintenance, all of the things that need to happen. So if you have any questions for him as well.
Mr. Nevenhoven, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah,
So
I'm
there's-
sorry, John Nevenhoven, Village of Elburn. So I got so used to being out there in the audience, it was great. It really is. What we're gonna try to do is, if we know of something coming up, to let Mr. Payton know ahead of time. But if you remember a couple of years ago, there was a force main break at your east entrance that happened right in one of the turn lanes coming into the high school. And, that force main is old. Hopefully it stays in perfect working condition for a very long time. But if we know of something that's coming up, yes, we'll let you know ahead of time. If it's an emergency, we gotta go, because we don't want to close down the campus. Going, well, sorry, we couldn't get in touch with somebody, so we're waiting. No, we're moving forward and going for the repair. So.
And just so too, with this piece of equipment that's here, no one else in the village can tie into it. So this really truly isn't a shared piece of equipment for the rest of Elburn. It's only for this campus.
Yeah. The campus is the only user. When it leaves the pump, the force main does not daylight again until it gets down to Tricilius. And there is no way for anybody else to get onto a force main. I'm not much of a physics major, but I wouldn't want to tap into it when it's under pressure. So that's just not what I'd want to understand.
Any other?
Any other
Any questions?
questions, comments? Thank you very much. Coming up. So, okay. No further discussion. I will now entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Elburn for the shared cost to maintain and repair the force main and lift station located on the Kaneland High School campus grounds in the amount equal to the percentage of Elburn student population enrolled at the district high school campus.
Non-Elburn student population.
No, the Elburn student population enrolled in the campus. That's how it reads.
Wouldn't our percentage be the percentage of non-Elburn students enrolled at Kaneland High School?
Could you clarify? Wait,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Wouldn't our percentage be the percentage of non-Elburn students, Auburn domiciled students enrolled at Kaneland High School?
Yes, that's what it breaks out to. So they're
So
paying
then-
for the percentage of Elburn students, and then ours is non-Elburn
Right,
students.
so it's the non-Elburn.
So the way the recommendation reads, let me read it again, that the Board of Education approves the intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Elburn for the shared cost to maintain, repair the force main lift station located on the Kaneland High School campus grounds in the amount equal to the percentage of Elburn students. So that reads that the Village of Elburn will pay the percentage of the Elburn student population. That's how I read that. Is that correct? Is that?
That was our intention.
That's
Yeah.
our
That would
intention.
Which is what you're saying. You're just saying it a different way.
In the reverse.
Right.
The district's responsibility is the
The non-Elburn resident percentage. And that's how the percentages have been calculated,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
Correct.
Okay. So let me read it one more time. So, I will now entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Elburn for the shared cost to maintain and repair the force main and lift station located on the Kaneland High School campus grounds in an amount equal to the percentage of Elburn student population enrolled at the district high school campus.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mancuski.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0. The IGA with the Village of Elburn is approved. Thank you. Okay, so last item of new business, now J5 or J7, sorry guys. Is the Learning Forward Conference update. Dr. Layden, if you could
Yes.
please provide us.
Yes, thank you. This is we wanted to provide this update because this is our primary conference that we attend outside of our own Ignite conference. And so I know Dr. Mum and Mr. Raleigh and several of our other attendees are here just to share some of the takeaways and highlights as we are looking for opportunities this year to showcase to the board academic updates and professional development updates. So that's the goal of tonight's presentation, and there's no action required.
Thank you. We're very excited to report on the Learning Forward Conference every year. It comes in December, the first week of December. It starts over the weekend for Academy, which we'll talk about in a minute. They actually go as early as Thursday. We stay through the weekend and then have about a day and a half of learning on Monday, Tuesday, and then usually come back. It is probably our biggest event, professional development wise, and has really informed us over the past 13 years on things that you will see in our strategic plan, our meeting practices, the decision-making continuum, personalized learning, really has been an area that we have grown. The intent of Learning Forward is to really focus on what new curricular and staff development initiatives are coming, as well as be an advocate for our Title II federal funding while we are there. It is an international conference. I think there were over probably 20,000-ish people there. So the host city just kind of gets swarmed for a weekend, and it's fun to see the networking across the nation and internationally as well. These slides are kind of our outcome that we do every year, where all of us attend you can go to the numbers one. You can see you had 9 staff members attend, and 2 of them, which we'll hear from, actually attend early to go to the academy. They are the 3rd group that has gone through an academy. At the academy, you get to take kind of a problem of practice, and over the course of 2.5 years, really work through that practice with feedback from partners from across the nation that really come back and inform Cane-Lin practices. On Sunday, then, we do have full day professional development sessions with a variety of topics of 8 hours each. And then on Monday and Tuesday, we get to go to 1 or 2 hour sessions throughout the day as well. A huge benefit of it is at the same time is all grade levels are represented. So it does give us some amazing time together to have cross grade span conversations. It's rare that we have all K-12 together outside of a typical structured meeting where we can brainstorm, reflect, check in with each other, and get to know each other a bit personally as well. And so you'll see the hours of learning, where the pre-conference is at 63 hours, 54 hours of breakout sessions. We attended globally among the 9 staff members, 22 sessions, and then about 2 hours of presenting for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. 3 of us have been presenting on our personalized learning structures and the ability to personalize staff development as well as the student. And the feedback that we've gotten, we included in the slides, and we're very proud of that. We've always been asked back to attend, and I think this year was our very highest enrollment in the presentation we did. So that was exciting to see. The slides are jam-packed with all of our learning, and we are not going through every section. We're going to ask every administrator that attended to kind of come up and just share what was one huge takeaway. And each one of us could probably talk for hours, but I don't think anyone's interested in that. So we're just going to give you a highlight from each of us of really what was a key takeaway from our learning experience, and to thank you for the opportunity to continue to put that into our federal grants. It is paid for predominantly by a federal grant, Title II and Title I. And so there is very minimal local costs that go to the travel and registration, and mostly our federal grant title package. So that's exciting as well. So I think we're going to start with Dr. Horn and Mr. Zerfus, just because they are in the academy, and I know those are one of the first slides, and then they will turn it over to Mr. Faulkner, and we'll move on down.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you in this early evening. One of the things that Dr. Horn and I, all right, we're here. One of the things that Dr. Horn and I have really the honor to participate in is the academy. The academy takes place over 2.5 years, and as Dr. Mum shared, it focuses centrally on a problem of practice. And Dr. Horn and I are both in separate groups, cohorts, if you may, with educators across the country. Most groups are 5 to 6 people, and those people span a wide range of roles, from young principals to highly experienced to directors of education services, equity directors, diversity and inclusion, instructional coaches. And it's a wonderful group, and I personally have found the most growth in being able to interact with those individuals and share those various problems and practices as we have navigated through that. Each session that we attend, this past summer we were in Kentucky, we were in DC here, we'll be in, I believe, beautiful Cleveland, Ohio this summer, Columbus, sorry. But each session builds on itself with various presenters, various activities. We have the opportunity as well, while in DC, to interact with the upcoming graduating class to see where they are at a year in advance. But ultimately, as I was sharing before, it's not just that collaboration piece, it's the problem of practice. And Dr. Horn and I each have a separate problem of practice that is taking us through the course of these next 2.5 years that we're currently in the process of. Specifically to the problem of practice that I'm engaging with right now is focused on feedback and the way in which we engage as staff and the providing of feedback and collaboration and discussion with our students. So the ultimate intent of the problem of practice that I'm working on is how we increase that level of collaboration and discussion between teacher to student and ultimately student to student and that discussion of learning and the feedback they're providing to one another. So as part of those processes that we're already working on is the implementation of a district-wide feedback delivery table, as well as additional professional development that will be oriented to support personalized learning in the way in which we provide feedback. I'll yield to let you share yours.
Yeah, I'll echo everything that was just shared about the problem of practice. But one thing I do want to highlight is how practical that problem of practice is. It's directly tied to the work that we're doing day in and day out at the schools. Service, obviously work in elementary school, myself work at the high school, and how we use the professional development in a practical way to have impact on our students and on our teachers, and how it's really streamlined at Canelan. We report directly back to our superintendent and to cabinet, and there's a guiding hand throughout this whole process. So my problem of practice directly tied into the school improvement goal, which is a 1-year goal that we just started this year that we're going to continue to develop and refine over time. So I'm excited for that. And I'm going to turn it over at this point to one of our attendees. Brian, I think you're up.
Yeah. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'll try to not bring so much energy as I always do. I see Dr. Lawler over there like laughing at me already. Thank you. I appreciate it. But you know me, this is how I'm going to bring it. So Sarah and I at our full day session we were together. We sat at the same table, and Marcia Tate was our presenter, and it was about happy, healthy school cultures and class cultures. And we just sat there the whole time and just smiled at each other, and we're like, we have it going on in Canelan. But so rather than sitting here and reading all this information, I thought I would tell you a story really quick because we have a lot to get through. So throughout that presentation, Marcia would ask us, hey, go find someone in the room that's not at your own table and talk to them about this. And she would put up questions on the overhead. And so I found this woman. She was an instructional coach, a math instructional coach from Pennsylvania. And one of the questions was, how do you incorporate movement into your math or into your classrooms? I said, well, hey, you're a math instructional coach. Here's what we do at my middle school. And she just looks at me, she smiles, and she gives me a card and she says, email me, I want to talk to you. Because she was so impressed with what we were doing. And it made me realize that what we do at Harder and in Canelan in general, that's just what we do, right? That's just who we are. That's how we roll. But to other people around the country, they're looking at what we're doing and they're recognizing what we're doing is groundbreaking. They're recognizing what we're doing is completely student-centered. So I thought I'd share that little story. There are a lot of great things that I believe we do, and laughter is a huge part of it. Now I have the research to say I can be funny and laugh a little bit in our building, and it's good for us when it comes to learning. So that's just a little snippet of what we had on that all day, and I believe Mr. Raleigh is next. Thank you.
I don't know who set that up to follow Brian, but in order to make sure that what is happening is effective, I spent a day with a gentleman by the name of Thomas Gusky, and if it exists of like rock stars of curriculum and instruction, Thomas Gusky is probably at the top of that list, and got to spend about 7 hours with him of how he effectively engages with professional learning. That is, again, a driver of what this conference is, and looking really, he has the benefit of traveling around the world and working with different instructional settings and institutions and public schools, and really looking at a shift that America needs to make is really how we put the students first in every single thing that we do, and shared a lot of anecdotal stories of how other countries approach that, but really gave a very practical system on how to evaluate your professional development. We want to do that all the time. We want to make sure that as we engage with all of our staff on Ignite Days, when we spend a lot of time building these programs to come back, and whether it's building the capacity of 1 or 2 staff members or the entire district, we are always asking, is what we are doing effective for our teachers, which in turn becomes effective for our students. So it was a very practical way to go and start to evaluate some of that, to give concrete data to all of our stakeholders to say, this is how we've planned this, and this is how we're collecting the data to show that it was super, super impactful. Did not have an opportunity to give away any business cards, but I'm sure Brian has many in his pocket to give away. I'm going to turn to
Martin or Laura.
Laura.
attempt to be efficient at the conference. This was the first session I went to, but it wasn't the best session I went to. So after I had already submitted it, I almost wanted to change the entire thing. This one was great. It was really about aligning professional development to the curriculum tools that you adopt and ensuring that the resource, the tool, the teacher, everything is aligned to make sure that the materials we're purchasing meet the needs of our students. So obviously excellent. After this, I had gone to a session on learner agency. That was the one that resonated the most with me and the most with our district. It primarily talked about everything you've heard tonight about Ignite Academy. It was about giving students a role in their own learning, teaching students to be to take agency over their own learning, have a voice, have a choice, but not just from a one student perspective or a one school perspective. It talked about a systemic approach to personalization. There are not very many districts that have a K-12 perspective on personalized learning, a K-12 perspective on giving students ownership in their own learning. This was a district that it was the district superintendent, the director of human resources, the high school principal, everybody in their organization talked about their role in furthering student agency across their district. And so I found it super valuable to bring that concept back to Canelan, because what we are doing in our district is very unusual and very unique. And this was another district that's attempting to follow in those same footsteps. And so like Mr. Rowley talked about, lots of business cards were exchanged, and we have lots of contacts that resulted from this opportunity.
So I think a couple sessions, as Garland said, informing is a really fun topic called clarity management, which is lighthearted as how to have fun in school. But it's still really, really, really relevant. So clarity management is about that there's an idea of two what seemingly seems to be like opposing ideas. They all live in our learning community spaces, and how do you create and cultivate a system to have those open dialogues in a safe way so that all voices are heard and valued. So, which is a really great skill to have as a person who works in a big learning community. So I could have probably done a whole presentation for you on this. Here's a little fun graphic about how to manage that. But another thing I liked about this session was that it really talked about the affective part of it, that we are in the human business. What are the things we need to do to take care of anyone who's part of that learning community, from students to staff to parents to board members to community members, make sure that we're all learning safely into that conversation. And then I went to a really great one on mentoring from a huge school in Atlanta. They're always onboarding staff, and so talk about how to make sure that we have a systems way to bring in ways to onboard teachers into our professional learning community. Make sure our students are getting the very best that we can get them.
So as you kind of flip through the remaining slides, those were our main sessions. After every full day session, we really sit at lunches, at dinners, and say, what are our next steps? Our minds are filled with things, but if we brought all those things back, then it'd be overwhelming to our staff. So we really try to pare down to what will be most impactful and then write kind of an action plan for that. The other sessions on that Monday, Tuesday, we've all just kind of put little snippets in there that you can reflect on and look at the next steps. One of the major ripple effects from this is we take administrators and instructional coaches every year, but then when we come back in January, we take a full ad team meeting hour to invite all the instructional coaches, all the behavior facilitators, our instructional technology coach, as well as our MTSS staff and administrators that did not attend, to do kind of a carousel station so that everyone is learning from the experience, and we're not holding that just in our departments, but expanding it to the other departments. The final thing that you'll see in this presentation is something we're super proud of that I mentioned at the beginning. We had the pleasure, Mr. Rowley and Mrs. Garland, I almost mixed that up. We're calling Mr. Mrs. everyone different today, doctors, and myself presented, like I said, I think it was about our 5th year in a row, basically on the ability to personalize staff development, allow staff choice in the way that they grow, as well as personalization for students. And you can see some of the feedback pieces. They have the ability to share how beneficial the session was them in application, and then also give us some statements. And it was very well received and suggested in a couple times that we should be the full day speakers, which really, made us feel pretty proud of Canelan for sure, but we'll stick to our 2-hour session. Ultimately, you can see on one of the last slides the huge benefits. As I said before, this started to inform our strategic plans 2 strategic plans ago. And so even before Canelin Connects, before Vision 2020, the work that we did at Learning Forward with decision-making continuum, collaborative history circles, all of that has been brought back to our planning. Tomorrow night at the Canelin Connects commitment meeting, shameless plug there if you'd like to attend, we will be doing a people search activity, which directly came from Learning Forward this year as well. And so we always take things and have the direct application and then look for impact into student learning as well. We are excited, hopefully, depending on our title grant funding that comes out in June, to attend the 2024. Our academy, Dr. Horn and Mr. Zerfus, have sessions, like they said, in the summer, and then they will be attending next year for sure. And then depending on our Title II money, we look at the ability to send administrators and coaches as well. Questions? You can tell our passion. It was a good closing presentation to get you excited about what we learned. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for presenting. We appreciate it and all the feedback. Okay. So that is the last item for new business. Next, we'll move on to the superintendent/board report.
Yeah, if you don't mind, President Gonzalez, I'll turn it over to Katie. So Katie
Yes,
can go first and she can go home. I know homework or parents, hopefully they know where you're at and that you're safe.
Good evening. As students head into February, some upcoming updates or events are taking place. Currently, Student Council is planning a winter dance and assembly. At the assembly, students will play various minute-to-win-it games against each other. Teams are based on the grades, so we will see if the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, or seniors will land on top. The theme for the winter dance is Northern Lights, and the dance will be on Saturday, February 17th. For sports updates, KHS Bowling placed second in a conference tournament. Boys varsity wrestling beat Plainfield East 43-30. Girls junior varsity basketball beat Morris 35-22. Girls varsity basketball beat Morris 68-43 for their senior night, so that's good. Boys varsity wrestling beat Addison Trail 36-35. Boys sophomore basketball beat North Chicago 52-30. And boys varsity basketball beat North Chicago 89-52. Unfortunately for us, girls junior varsity basketball fell to Wheaton Academy 25-21. Boys sophomore basketball fell to Batavia 63-37. Girls bowling fell to Rochelle 8-2. Boys varsity wrestling fell to Central 52-17. And boys varsity wrestling fell again to Glenbard East 50-18. Continuing sports, the Christina M. Colomb 10th Annual Hoops for a Career is on February 3rd. And for the first time ever in school history, Kaylin Cheer will be competing in state. For upcoming dates, the winter band concert is on Thursday, February 8th at 7 p.m. On Monday, February 12th, Kaylin will host its Powder Buff game, which unlike Powder Puff in the fall, Powder Buff is a volleyball game between the junior and senior guys. And a choir concert will be on Wednesday, February 14th at 7 p.m. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. A couple things that I have tonight to follow up Dr. Mum. The Canelin Connects committee meeting that Dr. Mum talked about is tomorrow night, and it's from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the KMAC building. So if you're available or interested and can attend, please let us know. We're going to be going through, again, various components of Canelin Connects, the commitments, and review of what we've learned thus far and what we have to do for the remainder of the school year. CAC, we had CAC last week. Based on the number of topics and the little time that we have to share out, we have added a March CAC. So that date and information will go out. I'll share that with the board to see which board member might be available in March to attend. Topics that we covered, we looked at staff and student handbook for the regular handbook, or the student handbook, and then also for special education, that feedback that we need to receive for the special education handbook on an annual basis. We did a little bit of an e-learning update, referendum update, and then the same summer school presentation that you heard tonight, they truncated it to about 3 minutes last Thursday night at CAC. And Mr. McCauley and Mr. Gonzalez were both able to attend. Is there any highlights or takeaways you'd like to share from CAC from last week?
I think the best part, we talked about the policies that, as far as the cell phone, really wanted to get into the dress code policy. We didn't get into that. Talked quite a bit about the referendum. I still think we're not completely there. There's a lot of ideas. I really hope that we do get more feedback from parents, teachers. Like we said, we want to know boots on the ground. What do the teachers want? What do the coaches want? We really want to hear your feedback. Really want the community to be involved. So we got a little bit from the parents that were there with the teachers. So I'm just doing a shout out, hoping more get involved and let us know where their thoughts are, so that we as a community can come together and hopefully get this to go through.
Yeah, we had so much fun. We added another one. It's a quality experience, especially being able to engage with the public on a more personal level, echoing basically everything that Mr. McCauley said. I really enjoy that, and I also echo the encouragement that that's your opportunity to come and interact and have input. So I appreciate the numbers we have this year and would like to see it grow.
We'll do that. That'll follow in the spring, we do our annual request for additional committee members across the district. So we will share that out again, and hopefully we can build each of our committees by a little bit annually. And thank you for attending. A next opportunity for board engagement is next Thursday here at Harder Middle School for our board tour. I'll share more information, but then again, that was scheduled with Mr. Faulkner, and that's next Thursday from 10 to 11:30. You'll have an opportunity to view the hallways, check out classrooms, and as Brian said, probably have to laugh along the way too. So that's always a good thing to come and hang out here at the middle school next Thursday from 10 to 11:30. And then the last thing, we do have a state required annual survey we have to provide, and it's called the 5 Essential Survey. We just received all of that information within the last day or so. So we're going to share that administratively, and we send an email out to parents, getting parents to fill it out, and we provide time during the day for staff and students to fill that out and then utilize that feedback when that is finished. We do have plenty of time because it actually opened today or Friday, and it's good through March, or that survey window is open through March. So we'll get that information out within the next couple weeks to our families, and then they have through March to fill it out. And that was all I had.
Okay. Dr. Fuchs, anything tonight?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. On to topics for future agendas. Anything tonight?
I have one. I don't know if it's really a topic or not, but I found out tonight how grossly I don't understand the TIF process. I thought I did. I don't. I would love to attend like a TIF boot camp or have a TIF boot camp and learn more about that process. I don't know if that's something we could put on the agenda. Dr. Fuchs, or I know somebody could walk us through TIF.
I think we kind of discussed that earlier with our attorney. If we could maybe have him attend and discuss the process.
Sure. Okay.
And then, potentially other experts in the area,
Yeah.
so we can. Because I agree 100%. We need to be fully educated on this.
But I read on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And we can build that in when we do have the attorney come back. We'll make sure, other than just an update related to this specific TIF, he can just give an overview of the TIF process as well.
Okay. But do we need to consensus that since we was already on there? Or?
Well, yes, you can, but he's already coming, and he's going to plan to provide that update already, so that will happen.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? No? Good. Okay. Okay. Well then, let's move on to the next opportunity for public comment. So, we have a few signed up, so again, please keep in mind the parameters as discussed before. No more than 20 minutes on an individual topic, total time of 30 minutes, and please, like you did the first time, we appreciate you respecting the 3-minute rule. So first up, Jaden Chada.
So now I have the rest of Mr. Jim Martyr's statement. So I'm going to circle back regarding the Oswego TIF. I'll jump right into it. Kendall County regular property tax assessment increases due to the TIF, estimated $96 per household for 2019. The impact fees were slashed, developer impact fees by 45%. The taxing bodies like schools and fire department, etc., depend on these fees to offset costs associated with the new construction and new residents. The Oswego Village said that $1 million in impact fees was delivered to our schools in 2018. This also means a similar amount was not delivered to the schools, staying with the developers. The newly created Oswego TIF district freezes current tax revenues and worse, reduces or eliminates them until years or decades into the future on the other taxing bodies, schools, fire, parks, library, etc. Waiving of impact fees. The current administration has completely waived impact fees for the Shodine project, reserved for the school district and other taxing bodies, approaching $2 million. This hurts Oswego school districts the most. 60% impact, lost nearly $4 million according to the current school board members to date. Estimated $600,000 to $800,000 per year or more gone. This TIF district is estimated to net the village of Oswego $2 million a year of your money, at the expense of the other taxing bodies over the life of the TIF district, estimated at 23 years, which has led the other taxing bodies, including the school and park district, to consider increases in their tax levies. The Alexander Lumber Yard property was purchased for approximately $1.5 million, then given to the developer, Shodine, for a $10 transfer fee. Plus your tax dollars given included $16 million taxpayer bonds and $6 million in village funds. Overall, $23 million given away for a wink and a smile. Trustee Ryan Kaufman thinks one of the biggest misconceptions is that TIF districts are a developer giveaway. Taxpayers, what do you think? And that is from Mr. Jim Martyr. And I'm going to segue into my 45 seconds. Regarding IDOT and the stoplights at the new development, we had spoken to somebody, I believe Corey at IDOT, and they told us that a new traffic intersection could not be possible until 2029 at the earliest. And Park and 47, Sugar Grove has been trying to get a stoplight put in for years. My family was impacted by an accident there, and IDOT, they didn't get to it. So Sugar Grove is resorting to alternative measures. And $23 million in Oswego. This is up to $350 million here. You're already struggling with finances, clearly with the discussions we've had tonight. And then as far as what President Conan brought up, as far as social media inaccuracies, if you have any questions or comments about what you may or may not see on social media, please contact the Thoughtful Progress Messenger or the email that's listed on Facebook.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Jara Piper. She went home. All right. I have Laura Ekstrom.
Hi, my name's Laura Ekstrom. I live in the village of Virgil. We are on the very northern side of the Keelan School District, and we love it up there. Anyway, I just wanted to take a few minutes, and first I want to say thank you I'm here to address Kipla, in case you were wondering. I wanted to say thank you to our administration and our staff members at Kipla. I know a lot of them left because they have to go teach our children tomorrow, but we really appreciate all of their support. A quick example, we had a Culver's night fundraiser, and we had 5 to 10 of our staff members, which we don't have very many, attend our fundraiser, and then they came here tonight to attend the board meeting in support of our school. So their support means a lot to all of us. So thank you to them. I know they'll probably watch this later. And then thank you to the board members too. We really appreciate you hearing about the school and supporting our students. I know there at least several of you have said like this is something that the board has put on the plate. Like you guys started this, maybe not you guys, but the board started this, and we appreciate your consideration in continuing to support our program. And then a couple of anecdotal things for you. I know somebody asked about IEPs and the inclusion, and I can only speak in my experience, but coming from a traditional school into KIPLA, my daughter now receives almost 100% of her IEP services in classroom versus a percentage outside of the classroom at a normal school. So that's, in my mind, a huge positive. I know she's a Inspire student, so in the younger grades, they have a SPED teacher in the classroom a lot of the time. So that's a huge bonus, I think, keeping those students in the classroom as much as possible, which is what we want. And then also, I attended the info night last Thursday, and I will tell you that there were at least 2 to 3 families that were coming from private schools that have been going to private schools instead of coming to district schools for several years that are now interested in switching back to the public education because of this program. And they wouldn't go to a traditional school, but they would like to come to KIPLA. So just thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Next up, we have Amy Corbett.
Hi, I'm Amy Corbett. It's 10:30 at night and I'm still very excited. I didn't really know what I wanted to say when I first came in here today. I'm talking about KIPLA, but I just didn't know where my conversation was going to go. I wanted just to thank everyone that's recognized what's happening at the school and like that it can attract and is attracting, like Laura said, other families to our district. And Dr. Lawler, I like how you are really encouraging more information to come back on how we can make 9th grade happen. My son is in 5th grade, so it'll be a few years, but like everyone's talked about, I don't want to lose that momentum. Like you guys said, there's a lot of time, years of time that went into establishing this, designing it. And my son did a few tours and talked to a number of people at the info night the other day, and he has several friends that want to come that have already filled out the interest form. What I'm curious about is you have some kids that chose not to go to Harder, so that's why you see a large 6th grade class. What about if you did like 9th and 10th? Would you have some kids that would perform better in a classroom setting like KIPLA, like to get the number of people that you want to make the numbers work for teacher student ratio, cost, all of that? Could we do something like that for our weird educational year that you guys were talking about? And then also, if that didn't happen, is there a way to take the teachers that would need to be certified for high school, is there a way to help them enrich the kids that are in 3 through 8? Is there something that they could bring that, you know, since we're a unique school, unique experiences, I don't have any examples, but maybe there's something else that they can do to make use of the whole time that they're there. But I also want to just leave you had asked some information that we had gotten at the info night. 2 things. 8th grade. Just within our school, so if you don't look at the district, they grew 20%, 8th grade did, for iReady math from when they first came into school and when they had the testing in the fall. You asked about basically their health, or like mental health, like how do they feel? 91.6% of KIPLA students report having developed strong friendships at school, and 87.5% report feeling a sense of belonging. So those are things that I think are important when you think about the vision of, please do that commitment of building it out as a high school as well. So.
Thank you for your comments.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I have Tim Slammers. He went home as well. Okay, Ben Kirkland.
Hello, Ben Kirkland from Melbourne. You guys heard from me at the last board meeting, so you can go watch that if you want the first part. Just a few things that struck me tonight. Again, I have an 8th grader at Kipler right now. And it may not be the intention of what was said, but I just wanted to make a comment on the comparison of the statement was made that programs are evaluated and sometimes not offered from year to year based on interest. And I just wanted to state, I feel like there's a big difference between we're not offering French 3 this year, we're not offering calculus this year, to we're taking the kids to an entirely different structure, an entirely different way of going to school this year because there's not quite enough interest. I wanted to thank the board for your consideration in this. I was made aware by one of the board members after the last board meeting that at least that board member learned about it at the same time that we did, basically. So, I appreciate that you have taken the interest that you have at this point. And I would just like to say, in terms of deciding whether you will make a commitment to this, I would say that if you asked any of the parents at Kipla before January 11th, if there was a commitment to this, they would have told you, yes, there's going to be a 9th grade next year. And so I would ask you to look at it from a perspective of, do you want to help them, the administration, honor the commitment that they made, not do we want to make a commitment to this on its own. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up, Miss Alex Crocker.
Hello, my name is Alex Crocker. I'm from Sugar Grove, and I annoyed my dad for 20 minutes to let me come because I feel I'm an 8th grader at Kipla, and I really want there to be a 9th grade, but I know that different from what I thought at the beginning of the year, I know now that there probably won't be a 9th grade. So but I like what I remember one of you said that it could be like a test year just to make sure that it continues, and I'm all for being a guinea pig. In a lot of my classes, like my teachers will tell me ideas that they have, and I'll be like, yeah, go for it. I'm willing to help you with trying that out. And I love helping teachers try new things in their classes. So I think that if 9th grade is a little bit unstable, as long as I get my credits, I'm fine with it. And yeah, I love going to Kipla. It's not only am I learning a lot more than I usually do, like I usually did, I'm forming better friendships, and I've definitely found a sense of like community. And I've found people that I can trust there. It's been a lot better for me since I started there, and at school we had to do this thing. It was like one word to represent you for the year. I chose sorry. It was prioritization. I want to work on putting myself first this year because for a long time I've not been putting myself first, but now at this new school, I feel like I finally have the opportunity that I can work on prioritizing myself, which I'm very excited about, but that won't really be as available once I go back to standard learning. Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up we have Carolyn Anderson.
Good evening. Thank you for having this discussion tonight and inviting the village to come and give their argument with this. I highly encourage you to please keep the discussions with the village here in the board meetings where they can be transparent and fully visible to the public. I wanted to share this with you. This is a House bill that is being introduced. Currently, it was brought into the state chambers back in January 12th of 2023. It is unlikely to pass. This was Representative Lance Yetnock, DeKalb, who brought this. The reason why I'm using his version is because it adequately redlines through the flaws in the impact fees. And this is something that I feel that the school district should be highly knowledgeable about. And so I just want to start with the bottom of page 37. It says in parentheses on line 21, 7.5. For redevelopment project areas designated, and I will just interject really quick, this is not technically a redevelopment project area. So, but they're calling it that. For redevelopment project areas designated or redevelopment project areas amended to add or increase the number of tax increment financing assisted housing units on or after November 1st, 1999 in an elementary, secondary, or unit school districts, increased costs attributable to assisted housing units located within the redevelopment project area for which the developer or redeveloper receives financial assistance through an agreement with the municipality or because the municipality incurs the costs of necessary infrastructure improvements within the boundaries of the assisted housing sites necessary for the completion of that housing as authorized by this act, and which shall, now the underlined are things that he wants to add in, so we're going to go right past those, which shall be paid by the municipality, carrying on to line 10, from the special tax allocation fund when the tax increment revenue is received as a result of the assisted housing unit and shall be calculated annually as follows. For any school district not excluding any school district in a municipality with a population in excess of 1 million annually by multiplying the district's increase in attendance resulting from the net students enrolled in that school district who reside in housing units within the redevelopment project area that have received financial assistance through an agreement with the municipality or because the municipality incurs the cost of necessary infrastructure improvements within the boundaries of the housing sites necessary for the completion of that housing as authorized by this act since the designation of the redevelopment project area. And then page 39 being the most important. Most recently available per capita tuition costs as defined in section 102012A of the school code less, and this is key, less any increase in general state aid as defined in section 18805 of the school code or evidence-based funding as defined in section 88115 of the school code attributed to these added new students subject to the following annual limitations for unit school districts with a district average. And if you notice here, these haven't been updated since 1995. This is a congressman who is trying to update them for year 2024.
Mrs. Anderson, I'm going to have to.
Oh, am I
cut
going
you
to?
off. We're
Okay.
in excess of time.
Got
I'm
it.
sorry.
Okay. But please review the percentages because it's a maximum 25% of the increment that they are allowed to pay. When the increment's going to take years to fund.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jennifer Crocker. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I usually come with a pre-written, well-edited statement, so just have to bear with me. So first I want to thank you for taking our concerns so seriously. I had very low expectations for this meeting, honestly. And for you to spend so much time talking about it, asking the right questions, and listening to the answers means a lot. My daughter was at home watching the meeting, and my phone went out because too many people in this room for the internet apparently. And by the time it reconnected, once it kind of cleared out, I had 42 missed text messages from her, and she annoyed my husband for 15 minutes until he caved and brought her so she could speak. So it means a lot. Some of the things that were said today, I just wanted to touch on. I wish that we had known sooner, the parents, that enrollment was a concern, because I would have been out there recruiting like every kid. It wasn't communicated at all to us that we were like in this area of 10 kids isn't enough, 15 kids isn't enough. If it were, Mr. Riley said, 20 to 25 kids. Had the parents known, we are a free resource available to you for this. Once the information was finally given to us, I took it upon myself to share the information with the rest of the Kipla families, to let them know what was going on, because if this happens to us, there's nothing to stop it from happening again. So we needed to speak up and use our voices. And we're teaching our kids that, you can use your voice and speak up, and people like you will listen, and that's important. But so since that information came out at the open house the other night, far more parents of current Kipla students attended so that they could talk to other families. They brought their kids with to talk to the other families, which will help enrollment. We are a free resource. Please use us to help you grow this school. I also want to touch on that the future expenses were something that was known when this was brought to the board originally. You wouldn't have started this school without knowing that what an expansion to 9th through 12th grade would look like. So this isn't a surprise what's happening next year. The problem is with enrollment, which we could have helped with. And like Alex said, she's happy to be a guinea pig. And I'm sure that the other 8th grade students, having already been guinea pigs this year, will gladly continue to do that. The teachers ask a lot about their feedback for how the class is going and what to do to improve, and we're happy to do that. Also, we can spread the costs between 2 years. If we only need furniture for half the number of kids, let's bump part of that cost to next year. Also, I'm happy to donate if you want some tables and chairs. I'm happy to help. But thank you so much. My time's up. But I just want to thank you. It means a lot.
Thank you for your comments. So at this time, I'll open it up to anyone else who'd like to come speak. Microphone's open.
All right, sign up. Brendan Moran, Third Grove Fire Chief. Just want to talk to you briefly education on the TIF districts. Obviously, you guys know you're already under 2 TIF districts. I'm under 4 in my fire district. We cover 34 square miles, Sugar Grove Township. 2 are in Sugar Grove, 2 are in Montgomery. So if this next one goes through, it's 5. Currently, 9 of our 34 square miles are either under a TIF district or non-taxed. So one more is going to be a huge impact on us. We've always had a great working relationship with all the principals and the school board. We appreciate you guys' support, and any thoughts you guys have on this to help continue push back on this TIF district that will be detrimental to us. So I have lots of maps in my office. I want to stop by and see all our progress and the things that are coming into our town and how it affects with the TIF districts. It's a huge impact on us. The one building that's currently in a TIF district pays us about $80 a year. If it wasn't in a TIF district, we would get about $7,700 a year out of that same building. Impact fees in my 18 years in Sugar Grove have always been a dirty word for village boards, both Sugar Grove and Montgomery. We currently get $137 some odd dollars from Settlers Ridge every time they build a building there from Sugar Grove impact fees. It's always been a non-starter to get anything else added to it.
I've heard tonight and other times that that may change in the future. But again, an impact fee is a one-time fee. Even if it's $1,000 for one house, what that equates to over the next 23 years is insignificant compared to what we could be getting on our tax money. So I think everybody here that's involved in that and trying to educate everybody, and I thank you for trying to get some more information on it. TIF is a very big thing for school districts. You guys benefit a little bit more. They talked about how you could recover some fees per student. Fire districts don't have that option. Library districts have a option to get, I think it's $50 per library card within a TIF district, which is again insignificant. But for the fire district, we have no recourse for that at all. So our costs to continue to increase, same as your guys'. You guys all talked about that tonight. Our increasing costs in vehicles and equipment and manpower to protect the community is continuing to rise as well. So thank you for your time. And
thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
My name is Dale Essling. I've lived in Blackberry Township, Munencore Blackberry Township for just about 31 years now. 3 points that I want to make, and then I've got another gentleman's letter he wanted me to read. TIF districts came to be so that, just say Jewel down here at 47 in Galena, they walked away from the building, it got graffitied, windows broken out. They want that developed. The but for that Sugar Grove used earlier is nobody would come in and fix that, but for a TIF that would help them develop that. They wouldn't have to take money out of their pocket. This part about the development, 760 acres up here, it can't be developed but for this TIF. Totally wrong. They can start building houses on that tomorrow. All they have to do is apply for county permits. They can start building houses. Now, houses add students, except if you build some development like a Del Webb, that's a 55 and older community, you introduce houses to the area and no students at all. So there are different ways to go about this rather than saddling the taxpayers of this district with $350 million TIF. Jaden touched on it before earlier about the development of Route 47. There's no plans to develop Route 47. They haven't even got funding to buy land to widen the road out, to put in stoplights, all that stuff. The engineering, none of that stuff's done. It's going to take 5-10 years at best to get that developed. And then again, Sugar Grove coming up here and saying that they don't know what the plan is a bit disingenuous, because they have been discussing and planning and meeting with Crown for years about this. They know what Crown's planning. They know what Crown wants to do. So they're being disingenuous at best with that comment. So real quickly, this letter's from Dan Randall. He lives in Willow Creek subdivision. He said, when we moved here 9.5 years ago, I fell in love with a rural community. It's very similar to that which I was born and raised in southern Michigan. I was concerned over the high school ratings. I saw one of the real estate websites about Canelan. I called the superintendent's office. He was kind enough to explain the results. Then they made sense. The results have significantly changed for the better since that one poor report that I saw. I might add, as a retired teacher, I get it. Schools run on the backs of the teachers, administration, and Board of Education that gets it too. I might add that my daughter will graduate this spring, either second or third in her class of 350 students. I was very disappointed in our community when they did not pass the proper funding that we need for our schools. I worry especially for the people of our school district, who now will face the long-term effects of a proposed TIF. They will be even less inclined to pass a school tax when Sugar Grove Town Board is planning to transfer the tax burden of warehouse TIFs from the billionaire Crown family onto their backs. I know that our high school especially is in serious need of remodeling. Updates have been put off for far too long, and this TIF can only hurt or delay that effort even more. The extended problem, and I will paraphrase the rest of it, when warehouses are built in this area, property values go down. When property values go down, tax money goes down. So it's just like a vicious cycle that just tailspins like out of control. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have time for one more public comment in our 30-minute allotment of time, if anyone would like to speak.
Okay. My name's Kayla Moreno, and I'm from Elburn. I feel like it's a bit redundant at this point, but I do have a 7th grader at Kipla. So when I first heard the news that the current 8th grade families were not being offered a 9th grade option, obviously that created a lot of anxiety in me, because I will say that we've only been in school since August. It's January. My son has had an IEP for 4 years, a 504 for 2 years prior to that. And currently now in 7th grade is the first time that he's actually doing something at grade level. Being in this environment, advocating for himself, the way he learns. He's not a traditional learner. I've always known that. He's definitely busy. So this environment has provided him with a lot of non-traditional learning modalities that he's thriving. He wants to go to school. He's making friends with people he would never have made friends with before. He is out of a social situation that was not serving him and his mental health and his growth, his personal growth. And so to be faced with potentially having to go back to that in such a pivotal point in his education is very concerning to me. So I feel like this is something that we can make happen. The community works together. Those numbers are there. I feel like people were very maybe hesitant. They wanted to see how it was going to go first before making those decisions to make those changes. I offered my son the option of changing and said we'd reevaluate at Christmas break. He has no plans of ever returning back to Harder or going to the high school. So I feel like seeing the progress of so many kids and hearing the success of so many families, I feel like that's just the start of something. This is the first year they've only been in school for such a short period of time. So I feel like this can happen if we work together and just, work through those little humps, work through those, give them the chance to succeed, give them the chance to see the growth, give them the chance to reach the people, give the people the chance to make those decisions based on other families' successes. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we're going to proceed forward. The board is scheduled for a closed session to discuss the Illinois Open Meetings Act, Section 2C2, 2C9, 2C21, where we anticipate action to be taken following the closed session pertaining to 2C9 student discipline. Due to the anticipated length of time in closed session after the vote to adjourn, the recording of tonight's meeting is concluded. Any action taken by the Board of Education will be documented within the meeting minutes that will be made public at the next Board of Education meeting. I will now entertain a motion that the board go into closed session to discuss the Illinois Open Meetings Act 2C2, 2C9, and 2C21 at 11:01 p.m.
So moved. Second.
All right, and that's it, right? Or a roll call.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye. All right, we're now closed session.